All right, you and I are about to watch a guy who thinks he's got it all figured out until he takes one step forward and feels something strange. Suddenly, a flash pops from the back of the room, and an arrow completely destroys his leg. He collapses in absolute agony, his foot totally mangled. Looking down, he realizes his dreams of playing football are completely shattered. He plants his sword in the dirt, desperate to crawl back to the lobby, but immediately collapses again. At least he unlocks pain tolerance level 1, but a dark question lingers: what happens if he dies here? No way could he let himself die here. Choosing the hell difficulty option was a massive mistake, and now he is paying the price, dragging his broken body across the cold stone floor. At least his pain tolerance reaches level 2 alongside hemorrhage resistance. Just as he thinks it's over, his mind flashes back to a night of drinking. See, this kid was basically a mini faker. He dominated the pro scene for years before retiring, only to find that ordinary life without competition was completely boring. Then, a mysterious prompt invited him to a tutorial. Confident in his gamer skills, he chose Hell difficulty. Suddenly, a voice tells him to wake up, and he finds himself in a blank white room filled with strangers. Confused, he backs away, scanning the massive pillars surrounding them. One man explains that they are currently on the first floor of the tutorial, but our main character has absolutely no clue what is happening. He spots a cute girl leaning against a pillar in the back. But then an older man interrupts, admitting they are just as lost, and demands our hero share whatever information he has. Our guy mentions the news reports about mysterious sinkholes appearing globally, but a loud bald guy who looks like a Walmart M&M tells him to stop making up fairy tales. Suddenly, a system pop-up tells everyone to select a weapon. Instantly, he is warped into a massive armory filled with gear. Walking through, he realizes this is the classic starting weapon select screen. Now, pay attention here, this choice is going to decide his future forever. In standard games, you've got classes like the tank, the healer, and the DPS. Magic is out since he has no clue how to use it, and heavy weapons do not fit his build either. A bow is cool, but then he'd be helpless without a team. Since he has no idea how this brutal hell difficulty works, he needs versatility. A sword and shield combo is his safest bet, letting him block incoming attacks while fighting enemies up close. Sure, level 1 gear is absolute garbage, but with zero better options, he accepts the choice. Instantly, he's warped back into the starting room. The older man starts to share some helpful tips, but the angry M&M guy aggressively cuts him off. He is already losing his mind from waiting around for so long. This hothead wants to pick a fight, threatening to test his new weapon on our main character. Luckily, a bigger guy steps in, shoves him away, and teaches our hero how to open his stats. And that is when the poor guy realizes he messed up big time. He has 8 strength and 21 magic power. He picked the absolute worst class weapon. Checking the community tab, he discovers the hell difficulty lobby only has 4 active players. The old man points out they must work together, confirming this really is some kind of sick RPG. Since these random strangers are his only allies, he figures he should build some trust. He introduces himself, mentioning he loves video games, which surprisingly gets the M&M guy excited too. They actually start bonding for a brief second. The big guy is about to speak when the cute girl from earlier chimes in, introducing herself to the group as Park Suha. Our main character suggests sharing weapon choices to form a proper party strategy. The old man chose a trident, while the angry guy went with an axe, leaving them with exclusively short-range weapons. Hoping and praying that Park picked a long-range bow or a magic staff, he turns to her, only for her to draw a katana with peak style. This team is dangerously unbalanced. With no other option, they begin training to prepare themselves. Hours pass, and our hero notices they do not feel any hunger, and their energy levels replenish incredibly fast. But the ultimate question remains: what happens if they actually die? Park praises him, calling him a natural leader, but their peaceful training session is cut short as the dungeon gate finally activates. The tutorial gate opens, but it is strictly 1 entrance per player. This means all of their cooperative team practice is completely useless now, and before they can say anything, their bodies start dematerializing. He tells them he'll see them later, but you and I are probably wondering, will he actually see them alive again? A system alert welcomes him to the first floor. Hyped up, our main character is ready to conquer this place, completely unaware of the deadly trap waiting in the shadows ahead. Looking behind him, he sees the entry gate is still open, displaying a prompt asking if he wants to return to the lobby. He quickly selects yes and warps back. Stepping into the empty lobby, he realizes he can retreat here to heal whenever things get too dangerous. This is an absolute lifesaver. Suddenly, Park crashes through her portal, landing directly on top of our boy. He quickly explains that the lobby instantly heals all wounds, so if they are ever in danger, they just need to run back here. Blushing, she agrees that the others need to know this trick. But as the minutes pass, none of their teammates return to the lobby. Anxious, he checks the player directory to see if anyone has died. Amazingly, the player count remains at 4, giving them enough peace of mind to step back into the trial. Before she jumps back in, she asks our main character to teach her how to fight once they return. He promises he will, and right before entering, she leans in close, whispering that she wants to get to know him much better later. Blushing, he heads back into the dark corridor, prepared to push forward. A cold draft hits him, but this time he feels ready for anything. Yet, 30 minutes later, he is still standing in the exact same spot, wondering why nothing has attacked him. Focusing deeply, just like in his gaming days, he suddenly unlocks 2 new passives, Battle Concentration Level 1 and Determination Level 1. He explains that active skills must be manually cast, while passives constantly boost you in the background. Understanding this system is crucial to surviving here. He figures out that skills trigger under specific conditions, mentally preparing to share this cool discovery with the rest of his team later. Suddenly, a heavy, suffocating pressure fills the air, putting him on high alert. He stares directly toward the source of the pressure, when a sudden flash of light tears through his leg. The agonizing pain drops him instantly, screaming. Looking down, his leg is completely shredded. Realizing he needs to escape, he scrambles back toward the gate as another projectile impacts beside him. Those hypersonic attacks are actually arrows. Dodging the next shot by a hair, it still cuts his cheek. A relentless volley of arrows rains down, forcing his pain tolerance and bleed-resistant skills to level up. Desperately clawing his way forward to survive, a stray arrow pierces his back, tearing open a massive wound that makes him cough up blood. Covered in deep wounds, primal fear begins to set in, completely shattering his focus. But remembering the new friends waiting back in the lobby, he rips the arrow from his back, forces himself up, and sprints for the gate. The moment he crosses the portal, he gains Awakening Level 1. All his wounds heal instantly, leaving both him and us breathing a massive sigh of relief. All right, you and I are jumping right into a complete nightmare. Our main character checks his community tab, only to freeze in horror. Out of his entire group, only 1 person is left alive. 3 are dead, and as raw panic hits, he absolutely breaks down. He realizes Troy and Joe probably did not know they could teleport back to the lobby to heal, while Park was likely trapped by those deadly arrows because her massive sword was useless in such a tight space. Cole weeps over losing his friends. Sometime later, he opens his status window only to realize every single skill he has gained so far is passive. Then, a new message pops up. He only has 19 hours and 12 minutes left to clear the first floor. Driven by grief, he stands up, swearing to finish this tutorial. Taking a deep breath, he steps through the portal and immediately drops into a tight combat stance. He steadies his breath, focusing on the dark hallway. Suddenly, a bright flash erupts at the far end, shooting a projectile straight at him. He barely dodges, realizing the arrow was aimed directly at his right ankle. That confirms his theory. The first shot always hits the exact same spot, meaning this trap follows a set pattern. The next arrow flies straight for his chest, and his shield barely blocks the impact. A third shot flies straight for his forehead, but he narrowly dodges. Another attack immediately rushes him. He tries to block, but the heavy impact shatters his shield into pieces. Suddenly, another arrow pierces his leg, forcing him to consider retreating to the lobby. But before he can move, projectiles stab into his shoulder and chest. He barely dodges a fatal headshot, slipping away and collapsing to the ground with his strength completely spent. Right before he completely passes out, a level-up notification flashes. Instantly, his wounds heal and his gear is restored. With no time to rest, another projectile flies at him. He deflects it with his sword, holding his ground until the attacks finally pause. That brief opening allows him to check his screen and confirm he has reached level 1. Now pay attention here, because this is where his luck finally shifts. He decides to farm more experience, fired up to get stronger. Right then, a strange prompt reveals that the god of adventure has taken a massive interest in him. Pushing deeper into the dark tunnel, he dodges and blocks a relentless storm of arrows. Finally, he activates his newly unlocked skills, which give him the edge he needs to break through the exit door. The instant he crosses the threshold, 2 more traps trigger, aiming right at his path. But his enhanced speed and agility let him slide past them effortlessly. He keeps pushing forward, deflecting incoming shots, his confidence soaring. After clearing the phase, he checks his screen. All those near-death struggles paid off, earning him powerful new skills and boosting his overall level. Staring at the system log, he wonders about this mysterious god of adventure. He recalls a post from the community board warning that every floor has a strict 30-day limit and failing to clear carries a terrifying penalty. Steel in focus, he prepares to enter the next pitch-black stage. But the moment he steps in, arrows erupt from every single angle, turning the darkness into a deadly crossfire. He deflects several arrows with his sword and blocks the rest with his shield, though one manages to pierce his leg. Yet, he actually smiles, because his pain tolerance has already reached level 8. The injury barely registers as pain. He charges forward, spotting the exit just ahead. Even when a stray arrow strikes his back, he pushes through the pain and breaches the exit. Bleeding heavily, he spots a bizarre structure in the center of the chamber, but exhaustion takes over and he passes out. When he finally wakes, he is submerged in a glowing fountain that has completely mended his broken body. Ahead lies a massive red door, clearly marking the boss chamber. He wastes no time and accepts the final challenge. The heavy doors slide open, revealing a crumbling, ruined arena surrounded by boiling, molten lava. On the other side of the ruins, a giant, ballista-like monster aims directly at him and fires. He dives out of the way, keeping his guard up as he storms through the rubble, frantically planning his next move. Suddenly, two blazing arrows strike him from behind. Before he can recover, another devastating shot shatters his shield into splinters. He falls to his knees, burning from the flames, but as his vision blurs, the faces of his fallen teammates flash in his mind, sparking a sudden wave of sheer determination. In his old life, he only lived for video games, not to pass the time but out of pure passion. Gaming was his only pride, and losing it left him empty. But right now, things are completely different. You and I both know how easy it is to give up when things get this painful. He is exhausted, bleeding, and mourning his team, but he refuses to run away like he did in the past. This time, he is standing his ground. Trapped in the inferno, he rips off his burning shirt and charges the boss with absolute fury. He weaves through the barrage of attacks, getting close enough to deliver a final, crushing blow. Bleeding and broken, he has cleared the first floor on the hardest difficulty. Mourning as the sole survivor, he thanks his lost allies, whispering with tears in his eyes. First floor cleared. Defeating the first floor boss brings a massive wave of experience points along with a stack of rare completion rewards. Our protagonist has survived the ultimate test. Moments later, a strange portal manifests nearby. He wonders if it leads to the next stage or a safe lobby, but with no other options, he steps inside. Instantly, he is teleported to a vast, grassy plain. Looking around in confusion, he spots a small shadow in the distance. Squinting to see closer, he realizes the strange figure looks exactly like an oversized rabbit. Suddenly, the creature spins around, introducing herself in an incredibly cute voice as Kira. Stunned, he introduces himself, wondering if she is an ally, a fellow player, or a game entity. She starts repeating his name in a sing-song voice, practically dancing around. She then proudly announces that she is his designated guide, introducing herself as the official manager of the infernal difficulty. She explains that every difficulty level has its own guide. He will meet her whenever he finishes a stage. Congratulating him on his survival, she unlocks new system features, including the global shop and auction. While the auction feature only works inside lobbies or safe zones, she notes that the shop is available immediately, asking if he wants to take a look right now. Bringing up the shop interface, his eyes widen at the massive collection of powerful gear and items on sale. Now comes the hard part, deciding what to purchase. Instantly, the rabbit girl gets way too comfortable, constantly judging his style and throwing an unsolicited fashion advice. A bit later, he finally gears up in his self-chosen outfit, while Kira stares at him, clearly thinking, what on earth is he wearing? What an absolute disaster. Shaking off her judgment, he asks her what happens to those who fail to beat the first floor within 30 days. She explains they are sent back, and all their food and water are wiped out. That makes earning points for shop supplies absolutely vital for survival. She also warns him that players can only stay in the lobby for 24 hours maximum. After that, the system kicks you out. When he asks where players go when forced out, she claims that information is classified. Kira explains that while she is here to guide him, there are strict rules about what she can reveal. He immediately calls her out, pointing out she was happily giving him purchasing advice earlier. She quickly snaps back, arguing that explaining shop items does not violate her guide rules. She offers to answer just one final question, but begs him to wait because she has a crucial piece of advice he needs to hear first. She urges him to stock up on as many recovery potions as he can afford. Instantly, he begins analyzing her warning, guessing that the second floor will heavily rely on status afflictions. For his last question, he asks what happens to those who die in this system. Her silence tells him everything he needs to know. Standing up, he thanks her, says his goodbyes, and prepares to leave. As the next portal forms, the bunny girl calls out his name one last time, wishing him luck and practically begging him to stay alive. Finding her pretty amusing, he promises to see her soon and steps forward. As he enters, the system shows his new time limit. And trust me, you and I are definitely going to want to see what nightmare waits for him on floor 2. All right, you and I are about to watch a gamer try the ultimate high-risk move. He wonders if this is the second floor, and if clearing multiple floors at once will net him some insane bonus rewards. But recalling his last brutal beating, he quickly checks his greed. Dying is not an option, so caution is key. That is when his eyes catch something incredibly interesting. A real, actual bed is sitting right there in the hall. Overjoyed, he flops onto it for a quick, much-needed nap. But when he finally blinks, his eyes open. 12 whole hours have passed by. He has literally never slept that long in his entire life. Once he shakes off the grogginess, he starts reflecting on how much he has changed inside this crazy game. His past life already feels like a distant memory. This relentless grind brings him straight back to his professional gaming days, back when he trained like a madman and bet his entire life on every single match. He is back in the game, but this time, death is very real. Knowing that sitting around is useless, he pulls up his status window and spots a brand new active skill called Battle Concentration. It used to be a passive ability, so he figures clearing floor 1 triggered the upgrade. He immediately starts training with it, pushing his body until he collapses onto the cold floor in sheer exhaustion. Right now, his limit is only about 5 minutes. Pushing any further than that means risking a complete blackout from the intense mental strain. Next, he checks the auction house, accessible to anyone who cleared the first floor, regardless of their chosen difficulty. Unsurprisingly, almost everything listed for sale is just basic starter gear. He decides to stick to his previous strategy, using his final 3 days to grind and hone his skills. But when he opens the community boards, one tiny detail immediately catches his eye and leaves him completely stunned. The player count for Hell difficulty actually increased. Scrolling through the global chat, he finds everyone buzzing about the rookies who were crazy enough to select Hell mode. 5 new players, to be exact. He knows they must be totally lost and terrified, and leaving them to die doesn't sit well with him. He decides he needs to share his survival tips. Now watch closely, because here is where the tension spikes. The rookies join the Hell chat, and our main character starts typing his guide, but they all instantly log out, sending shivers down his spine. Still, he posts the advice anyway, praying they read it because underestimating this tutorial is a death sentence. To prep himself, he draws his sword and tries stabbing his own body to build up his damage resistance. But the blade cannot even scratch his skin. It turns out, farming experience inside the safe lobby is totally useless. Right on cue, a portal materializes, marking the start of floor 2. Packing his gear, he steps through the glowing gate, only to find himself in a dark stone tunnel identical to the first floor. Suddenly, 3 sharp arrows shoot straight at him. Reacting instantly, he swings his blade, knocking them aside and cleanly slicing them in half, muttering that their trajectory was too easy to read. Pressing forward, a strange new sound echoes through the dark. Before he can react, a projectile flies out at blinding speed, forcing him to bring up his shield, which completely shatters from the heavy impact. Another dart pierces his leg, and he realizes it is coated in deadly venom. Within seconds, heavy dizziness sets in, making the tunnel spin. Choking back nausea, he opens his inventory to grab an antidote. But then, a crazy, high-risk idea pops into his head. What if he lets the poison run its course to test his absolute limits? He reveals he possesses a unique sixth sense, a mental gauge that shows exactly how close he is to dying. He visualizes this danger like wading across a mythical river of death. Reach the far bank and it is game over for real. After checking his mental map, he realizes he has only dipped his toes in, so he stashes the antidote back in his bag. He whips out a leather strap and tightly binds his injured leg, slowing the spread of the venom. Right on cue, a system notification pops up he has gained level 1 poison resistance. He pushes himself up and collects the stray needles from the floor to use as future weapons. But suddenly, the venom surges violently through his veins, forcing him to make a run for the lobby portal. Now, I know what you are thinking, why not just jump through? But instead, he pauses to test his limits, using his death sense to watch himself sink deeper and deeper into that terrifying river of death. Realizing he is right on the edge, he leaps through the gateway just in time. The moment he crosses, his poison is cured and his wounds vanish instantly. Another alert pops up, granting him paralysis, resistance level 1. Standing back up, he formulates a crazy plan to level up these fresh resistances by taking even more intentional damage. He steps back into the danger zone, and the traps fire instantly. He dodges and blocks the onslaught, But then he does the unthinkable. He pulls a toxic needle from his shattered shield and plunges it straight into his own hand. Foaming at the mouth and trembling, he curses the absolute insanity of a game that forces you to torture yourself just to level up. Suddenly, another needle grazes his cheek, slicing open his nose. With his strength fading fast, he blocks the next volley while chugging his antidote. Instead of backing down, the rush only pumps him up even more. Eventually, he pushes into the next chamber, where the temperature is skyrocketing by the second. Acting fast, he pulls out a water bottle and splashes it over his face to combat the blistering heat. Right after that, 3 projectiles slam into his shield, unlocking heat resistance level 1. He presses on, taking out a freezing potion from his inventory that wraps him in a chilling blue aura to dull that oppressive, burning heat. But even that barely helps. A massive wave of scorching heat washes over him, forcing him to down a vitality potion just to stay conscious. He hits burn resistance level 2, wondering if his flesh is melting off. That split-second distraction cost him, as several needles pierce his body. He would have died right then if he had not leveled up. In this game, leveling up completely restores your health, stats, and gear. Dragging himself up, he charges toward the exit. As a massive wave of needles flies his way, he triggers his skill Blessing of the Wind Spirit. Activate. With his speed boosted, he weaves through the trap with ease. But out of nowhere, he trips over his own feet, crashing face first and slamming his head hard against the stone wall. Bleeding and groaning in agony, he realizes he has to use his very last healing option. He is terrified of dying from something so incredibly stupid. Imagine getting taken out by a clumsy fall. It is completely humiliating. Suddenly, a notification pops up. The god of adventure feels sorry for you. He feels incredibly embarrassed knowing some deity just watched him wipe out like a total clown. But his jaw drops when a new passive skill appears, Natural Regeneration level 1. Peering into the next chamber, a biting draft tells him it is going to be freezing. He retreats to the lobby to prepare properly. Second attempt, day 19. 6:30 in the morning. While eating, he reflects on how the community chat is filled with both good and toxic people, just like real life. And unfortunately, the trolls always seem to outnumber the helpful ones. The boards are packed with dangerous misinformation, but then he spots a highly intriguing post. A user claims that clearing 100 floors is the ticket to returning home to the real world. That rumor must give people so much hope, especially since the exact rules for beating this tutorial remain a mystery. Still, the thought of clearing 100 floors sends shivers down his spine. Well, you and I are about to find out if that rumor is true as he climbs. Cut to a bit later, where he prepares to face the brutal ice chamber. Decked out in custom leather gear, he steps into the freezing gale without flinching. He immediately triggers battle concentration, sensing an incoming projectile and ducking just in time. All right, you and I are diving right back in. And our main character has just spotted a healing well deep in the tunnel, meaning the final boss is just ahead. After sizing up the boss gate, he tosses off his cloak, readying himself to face the ultimate challenge. But stepping inside, the sheer scale of the arena leaves him breathless, especially when a prompt suddenly asks if he wants to escape to the lobby. Talk about terrible timing, this random escape option completely throws him off. So, just like where we left off, our hero is standing in the second floor boss room, totally uneasy about this sudden lobby portal. But before he can even think, another system notification pops up with his actual clear conditions. He has to survive in this room for 3 hours, with a countdown starting in 30 seconds. Compared to the deadly traps he just cleared, this trial sounds shockingly simple. Still, he stares at the portal. Since he already gathered all the loot from this floor, there is absolutely no reason to retreat now. He hits no, bracing himself as the system announces the trial is officially beginning. A new alert orders him to endure the most painful experiences of his entire life. Before he can even process what that means, the world warps, dragging him away. The system is forcing him to relive his worst memories through hyper-realistic illusions. Suddenly, he's back on the first floor, right when a barrage of arrows nearly ended his life. He instantly maps out the trial's rules. He just has to survive 3 hours of mental torment. But the next illusion drops him straight into his old school, dragging him back to his teenager days. It is the exact moment he confessed to his crush and got brutally rejected, which was a total nightmare that caused him deep emotional damage. The absolute most embarrassing moment of his life. He groans, wishing for physical torture instead of this cringe. It is clear he would take a beating any day over reliving this awkward nightmare. When the god of adventure pities him via system message, he snaps back instantly. With no clock to track the time, he is quickly sucked into the next memory, watching his past self staring blankly at a monitor. A rival pro gamer is on screen, giving a smug interview. The guy is openly mocking him, bragging about how much better he is, which instantly makes our main character boil with rage. This was back when our hero was the reigning champion. The illusion forces him to watch his devastating loss to this upstart, making him bow his head in pure, crushing defeat. Watch closely here, because the rival walks right up to mock him, calling him a washed-up old man. This mental torment pushes him to his absolute limit, leaving him on his knees, begging for an end. To make matters worse, not even 1 hour has passed. He knows these fake memories cannot kill him, but experiencing them is pure torture. And then, the next illusion strikes. Our main character sits defeated while a grieving woman stands over him, screaming that their father's death is entirely his fault. Judging by her words, this must be his sister. Back in the real hall, his body lies unconscious as the psychological attacks keep battering his mind. This memory cuts way deeper than the rest, forcing him to violently claw at himself just to snap back to reality. Gasping for air, he realizes this trial will drive him mad, and physical pain is his only escape. Yet, he cannot shake the haunting memory of his sister's accusations. Was he truly responsible for his father's passing? Before he can find an answer, the trial pulls him under again, dropping him in a hospital room where his sick father lies in bed. He asks his father how he is doing, but the old man stays quiet, dodging the question to ask if he has had enough. Confused, our hero asks what he means. His father snaps at him to get a real job, instead of wasting his life playing video games. The argument heats up as his father demands he think about his actual future for once. Our main character fires back, shouting about his dedication and how hard he actually worked as a pro. He demands to know if his father even cares about his struggle to survive. His father softly calls out to him, but our hero cuts him off, claiming he never tried to understand, and storms out. Let us pause for a second, because his father desperately reveals he is the one paying the hospital bills, begging him to stay. The scene cuts, throwing him back into the cold hall. He screams internally that he cannot take any more of this, but the next nightmare instantly takes hold. He sees his father lying dead in a coffin, while his sister blames him for triggering the fatal heart attack. Crushed under her words, our hero can only stare at his father, completely lost in his own guilt. Drowning in deep regret for never trying to understand his father, he sinks further into the abyss of his mind. Suddenly, in a desperate bid to escape, he slashes his own arm with his sword. The sharp pain snaps him back to reality, but only for a split second before the next wave hits. Once again, the apparitions of his sister and father stand before him. They glare at him with absolute judgment, chanting that it is all his fault. He drives the blade even deeper into his arm to force himself awake, telling himself that physical pain is nothing compared to breaking down. He screams for the system to bring on its absolute worst he will survive it all. Finally, a notification congratulates him for being the very first to conquer the second floor's final portal. Gasping for breath, he wonders what kind of massive rewards come with being the first. The god of cold takes notice of him, followed by a massive flood of notifications. Various deities, from the gods of warriors and health to slowness and light, are watching him now. He is clearly doing something right. Stunned by the sheer number of watching deities, he is interrupted by a new window detailing his hard-earned floor rewards. The goddess of slowness offers him a portion of her power as a reward, giving him a choice to accept or decline. He hesitates, realizing this is completely different from any normal skill he has ever encountered before. Ultimately, he accepts. The system rewards him with a maximum-level teleportation emblem, a special gift from the goddess of slowness to a warrior who possesses the patience of an apprentice. Left completely in the dark about what this actually implies, he wishes for a normal explanation. Right on cue, a message reveals the god of adventure is highly disappointed in his choice. Annoyed, our main character curses out the petty deity and decides to consult Kiri about this weird power. The scene transitions back to the open field as a portal cracks open. He sighs with relief upon returning, only to be instantly headbutted in the chin by Kiri as her chaotic way of welcoming him back. Rubbing his jaw, he demands to know the reason for the assault. Smiling brightly, the rabbit girl admits she missed him and is genuinely glad he is safe. Blushing slightly, he agrees, telling her he has a special surprise. He opens up the shop interface and hits the purchase button. A beautiful cake appears in his hands, which he happily hands over to her. Her eyes sparkle as she squeals with joy, asking if it is truly hers. He warmly thanks her for all her crucial guidance, but she is completely entranced by the sweet treat, practically drooling and ignoring his speech. Hopping around in pure ecstasy, she declares him the absolute best. A little while later, as they happily munch on the cake, he asks if she has any useful pointers for the upcoming third floor. With a big smile, she cheerfully says no, leaving him completely flabbergasted given her past help. She explains that he is growing so incredibly fast that any advice she gives him now would be completely useless. Hearing this, he reluctantly accepts her reasoning. Before he can ask if the other held difficulty players are even alive, she warns him that this next query will exhaust his daily limit. Trust me, you and I are definitely going to want to see what happens next. Let's dive back into this insane journey where our main character asks about his new teleportation skill. She explains it is from the goddess of slowness, given to players who dominate the tower's floors. Ho wonders if this goddess has a crush on him. Kiri mentions she only gets one chance to share her power, which gets him hyped enough to demand all the details. She suggests testing the skill right here in the lobby. He agrees but throws in one big question. Who exactly are these gods? What is their goal? And why watch them at all? She gives him a dead serious look and tells him to find out himself. He backs off, secretly guessing these gods built this tutorial world just to throw players inside it. Realizing he has already cleared 2 out of 100 floors, Ho assumes the ultimate answers about this tutorial world are waiting for him at the very top. Before entering the portal, he stops for one final question. He wants to know about that second floor clear message, the one saying he fully conquered it. What did that mean? At first, Kiri claims it is a system glitch. When he pushes for answers, she completely shuts him down. That triggers a massive wave of questions about the administrators, going home after clearing 100 floors, and whether her rabbit ears are actually fake. Sadly, she gives him nothing useful at all. But as he turns away, she calls him back to hand him a fresh set of clothes. Thrilled, he asks if they are really for him, and she laughs, saying they beat his current rags. Saying goodbye, he lets her keep the rest of the cake, which instantly makes her day. He even promises to buy her another on his return before telling her he will see her soon. He steps into the portal to the 3rd floor while Kiri waves. Reaching the lobby, his priority is checking exactly what his new skills are capable of. Pulling up his status window, he checks the teleport skill. He laughs at the irony of getting a high-speed movement ability from the goddess of slowness. Now, pay attention here, he is about to test this legendary skill. He activates the power, one eye turns pitch black and insane energy starts crackling all around him. In a flash, he vanishes and teleports a few meters forward. Shocked by the instant distance, he realizes that if this were a normal game, players would be absolutely furious and screaming for a massive nerf. Next, he tries to chain 5 jumps. The first works, but the second sends him flying straight over a bed and face first into a hard pillar. He quickly learns this skill is incredibly tough to control. Since one bad move caused a total wipeout, he vows to check for obstacles before jumping again. Later, he starts sorting through his gear. Potions, food, water, and weapon checks are done. Equipping a new sword and armor, he decides to review his status window one final time. Opening his stats, he is hit with a surprise. Wind Spirit's Blessing has already hit stage 3, and he realizes this could easily become his ultimate go-to ability. He gets back to practicing his teleports when a sudden notification pops up on his screen. Thinking it is a message from another Hell difficulty challenger, he immediately opens it up. To his surprise, it is an invitation to some representative confederation. Having zero clue what that is, he taps on it anyway to investigate. A follow-up message promises to explain their goals and mission, saying they look forward to a reply. The message is signed by a player named Lee Shang-suk. He notes the community is getting way more active, though he never expected organized factions so soon. He is, after all, the sole challenger stuck in Hell difficulty. Deciding to reply later, he focuses entirely on the 3rd floor. Soon we see him standing inside the trial, facing a giant chessboard. He leaps down from his ledge directly onto it. The absolute second his foot touches the ground, a deadly projectile fires at him, forcing an instant dodge. Guessing the trap's trigger on black tiles, he targets a white square and leaps over. He lands and braces for impact, but nothing happens. I know what you are thinking, too easy, right? And he feels something is deeply off, too. He pops his massive speed and agility buff to see if he can abuse the power whenever he wants. Once active, he dashes across the white tiles. Spotting the exit, he gets fired up and keeps pushing. But the moment he lands on the next white tile, arrows erupt from all directions. Thanks to insane reflexes, he triggers his teleport and slips past the trap, clearing the entire stage. He thinks the tutorial is incredibly twisted for making him feel safe on white tiles, only to spring a trap. Regardless, he presses forward to the next zone. Reaching the regeneration fountain, the final healing spot before the boss room, he bypasses it entirely since he is unhurt and heads straight for the massive boss gates. Eager to wrap this up, he readies himself and throws the doors open. Blinding light washes over him, revealing a chaotic arena of floating rock platforms. Stepping inside, he barks a challenge to whatever is waiting. The room's objective flashes onto his screen. He must reach the far side, but these floating rocks will collapse shortly after contact, meaning he has to move extremely fast. Worse, the entire path is loaded with lethal traps. Calling the arena completely insane, he realizes the system is trying to murder him. One slip means instant death. Suddenly, his platform drops into the abyss. Raising his shield, he mutters that crumbling rocks are the least of his worries. He blocks a stray arrow, complaining that he cannot get a single second to breathe. He has zero idea where these attacks are coming from. Then, his rock vanishes, sending him falling. Activating Wind Spirit's blessing, he barely manages to leap to a safe zone. From there, he keeps leaping, chaining his teleport with Wind Spirit's blessing. Even with divine help, he admits this is the toughest stage yet, especially when all platforms start falling. He charges forward and takes a leap of faith from the last rock. While suspended in midair, he utilizes his teleport to close the gap, barely grabbing the final ledge. Moments later, a system alert confirms his clear of the third floor. Exhausted, he groans that he almost died, cursing the designer for building a level made to kill everyone. Standing back up, he gathers his clear rewards. He is shocked to find that the god of adventure now wants to offer him a power-up too. This annoys him, considering how much this god pestered him daily without offering jack. Still, knowing teleportation just saved his neck, he accepts the gift with no regrets. A new alert pops up, granting him wings of Teleria at maximum level. Stunned by this sudden windfall, he opens the description to see what it actually does. The description reveals the god created a fragment of his authority for an interesting challenger, specialized for high speed. He opens his status screen to inspect the new ability. Even if it is just a shard, divine power is still divine power, meaning it is bound to be overpowered. He decides to locate Kirikiri to ask her about it. She is completely ecstatic to see her cake and charges at him. He holds her back with his foot, asking if he looks like dessert, but right then, a sharp, sudden pain strikes his head. Kirikiri asks if he is all right, but he completely blacks out. Waking up later, he realizes extreme fatigue finally caught up with him. That is when he notices she is using his lap as a pillow. Looking down, he sees she is fast asleep. Honestly, you and I wouldn't want to wake her either. Instead, he gently touches her soft rabbit ears, marveling at how fluffy they are. All right, you and I are jumping right into a wild start as she wakes up screaming, telling him to keep his fingers out of her ears. The echo is deafening, leaving him awkwardly apologizing. Next, we cut to them enjoying some pudding. He admits the third floor was insanely weird since the difficulty spiked out of nowhere, making him genuinely believe he was about to meet his maker. Kirikiri explains it is because he beat it in the most bizarre way possible. Confused, he asks what she means, and she reveals the boss room actually had a lower route the real path he was supposed to take. She adds that the gods never expected anyone to clear it without falling. Hearing this, he decides he cannot wait to find the creator of this twisted world, just so he can beat them to a pulp. Time passes. Kirikiri happily squishes her pudding while he scrolls through the community boards again, but there is still absolutely nothing useful to be found. The chat is an absolute dumpster fire. One guy tries acting like a smooth player before instantly turning into a massive simp. But then, something catches his eye. A group is gossiping about the representative confederation, revealing that others received the invite as well. He pauses, wondering if this group only exists in the lobby, and starts questioning what their real motives are. See, once you clear the first tutorial trial, free food and water vanish. Challengers must spend their own hard-earned points, and the moment the 24-hour lobby limit hits, everyone gets kicked out. This leaves him highly suspicious. How are those players even staying there? He cannot fathom how they maintain an active group under these rules. The whole setup feels incredibly shady. For a brief moment, he wants to ask Kirikiri about it, but quickly drops the idea. Why waste precious questions on people from other difficulty tiers he can never meet or interact with anyway? Ultimately, he decides to focus purely on himself. He turns to Kirikiri for advice on what to pack for the fourth floor. She happily suggests grabbing some rope, hooks, and a telescope. As far as she is concerned, that is all. But when he brings up the wings of Tuleria, she gasps in pure shock that he unlocked another divine power, calling him absolutely incredible. She explains that this skill summons legendary wings on his back, allowing him to glide with massive magical defense. Next thing we know, Kirikiri is watching him soar through the air to test it out. A second later, he sticks a flawless superhero landing. He praises the god of adventure like crazy, completely hyped about how broken and awesome this new ability is. Kirikiri quickly reminds him that gliding is not flying, but he shrugs it off. It is already more than enough for him. What truly matters is how creatively he uses it. By combining this with his movement skill for a massive jump, He can glide incredibly far. Plus, he thinks the wings look absolutely gorgeous on him, and he is totally feeling himself. Then, as a sweet reward for the tasty cake, Kirikiri decides to share a crucial secret. She waves her arm, and a portal suddenly tears open. He stares in utter confusion, wondering if his time is already up. She warns him that the great conference is rapidly approaching. When he asks what that means, she cryptically says he will learn the truth of this world soon, but until then, he must survive at all costs. Suddenly, she shoves him right into the portal. He screams her name, begging her to wait, but in the blink of an eye, he materializes in the fourth-floor lobby, completely baffled by her words. Meanwhile, we cut to a different, overcrowded lobby. A shady guy casually twirls a knife, while another poor soul hangs bound to a pillar with a bullseye drawn on his chest, begging for mercy. Without hesitation, the sadist hurls the blade, plunging it straight into the man's shoulder. As the victim screams in agony, the thrower laughs, noting how convenient it is that wounds heal almost instantly here. Meet Lee Chang-suk, the ruthless head of the Representative Confederation. Meanwhile, our protagonist gears up, preparing himself to face the dangerous fourth floor. He spends his time masterfully training with his divine gifts, practicing relentlessly until he can wield both powers seamlessly. Finally, a system alert pops up, asking if he is ready to enter the stage. He hits accept. Stepping inside, the floor feels quite similar to the first two, only vastly larger and more open. Suddenly, a massive, thunderous crash echoes from deep within the pitch-black tunnels. He wonders if a real enemy is finally showing up instead of another boring trap. But you and I know that thought vanishes instantly as a massive monster appears right in front of him. It unleashes a deafening roar. Getting into stance, he realizes the system is not pulling any punches for his first real monster fight. This beast is massive. It swings a giant axe, and he barely dodges. How on earth is he supposed to slay this giant? He curses Kirikiri for not warning him to bring heavier weapons, but quickly realizes he will just have to win with what he already has. Steadying his mind, he triggers battle concentration. The beast charges, swinging wildly, but he slips past its guard, aiming to retaliate immediately with a quick counterstrike. But before his blade can connect, boom, he gets smacked backward, coughing up blood from the brutal impact. This giant is terrifyingly faster than he ever anticipated. It rushes in again, aiming for a lethal finishing blow. He braces his shield, but something feels off. The monster fakes an axe swing and instead shatters his defense with a devastating punch. His shield explodes into splinters, leaving him completely defenseless. The massive axe looms. The beast leaps forward to split him in two. Just as the axe descends, he vaults right over the beast, delivering a brutal kick to its face. Landing smoothly, he asks if it saw that coming, admitting it is his first time using the skill this way. Utilizing his active teleportation, he realizes he only ever used it to dodge. Now, he sees its offensive potential. The furious beast charges again, but he stays cool, ready to end this. Activating the Wind Spirit's blessing, he scores a deep slash. Before the beast can even turn, he teleports right back in, executing a clean strike that completely severs its head. This victory gets his blood pumping. Before long, he is absolutely decimating every monster in sight. After dropping his latest target, he marks down his 26th kill. You and I can tell he is getting cocky when he wonders if he should fight the next one bare-handed. Checking his status window, his combat skills have indeed improved. He silently thanks the goblins, knowing this attempt is wrapping up. Cutting back to the lobby, he monitors his second run, which is nearly finished, right before the third attempt kicks off. He checks to see if any newcomers join his difficulty. Unsurprisingly, the list only shows him because honestly, who in their right mind would willingly choose a difficulty called Hell? Later on, something on the forums grabs his attention. The chat is in absolute chaos thanks to the panicked rookies. Deciding to help, he tells everyone to pipe down and listen up. This is a tutorial zone, completely cut off from their home. Going back is not an option right now, and one tiny mistake means death. They need to focus if they want to live. The rookies panic, with one asking if they are in hell itself. Another replies that everyone around him was already eaten by beasts. He urges them to stay calm, but those words linger in his mind. Suddenly, someone from a lower difficulty asks what they mean by monsters. As the rookies explain the horror, our protagonist freezes in absolute shock. It all finally clicks. The real world has transformed into a living hell. We see Earth plunged into absolute chaos as massive portals tear open globally, spewing out endless hordes of monsters. Armed forces mobilize, but they are completely useless. Thousands of innocent lives are instantly obliterated in the blink of an eye. While soldiers struggle, smaller nations are completely overrun and destroyed. Trust me, You and I are about to watch humanity plunge into a hopeless war against an endless, unstoppable nightmare. All right, you and I are about to watch a terrifying nightmare unfold. 2 weeks after the portals opened, 90 million people are dead. Our horrified main character suddenly realizes his world is ending, and all he can think about is his mother and sister. He desperately tries messaging the new arrivals, but the chat is flying by too fast to read. Is this tragedy actually real? Panic sets in as he fears for his family's safety. Freaking out, he needs answers fast. Then, a random message catches his eye, someone asking if they can still save their loved ones. Right then, a spark of realization hits him. He can slay these monsters. By the time he conquers the final floor, he will be unstoppable. Why was he even trapped in this bizarre tutorial anyway? He had no clue. Zero explanations, zero rules, and absolutely no way out. Yet, one thing is undeniable: this system is making him stronger. That means he has no choice but to save humanity. 1 month has slipped by since the apocalypse began. Today marks his third challenge in this tutorial. Now, he finally understands the true, brutal purpose behind this twisted place. Now pay attention, because everything changed when those newcomers arrived with news of the real-world massacre. Hearing that dark truth shifted everyone's mindset. From that moment, survival was no longer just a game. Suddenly, players are aggressively clearing floors. Those with families back home are moving with pure desperation. Instead of fighting alone, they're actually teaming up and helping each other. And honestly, he is right there with them. As he camps out on one of the danger zones, he scrolls through the active community boards. Dead goblins litter the floor around him while he stands there, striking a totally badass pose. But wait, a massive roar erupts from behind. An angry monster is charging right at his back. He casually spins around and closes the distance. The beast swings its heavy axe, but he blocks it effortlessly with his shield. Shocked, the creature instantly freezes in pure terror. With a quick slash, he cuts deep into its shoulder. The goblin shrieks in agony before a swift sweep kick sends it crashing down. Mid-fall, he slams his shield straight into its chin, launching it upward. He catches the beast by the head and snaps its neck like a twig. Yeah, that felt incredibly satisfying. He has grown ridiculously fast. In this strange world, sleep is totally optional, meaning 2 hours is plenty. Still, he knows he needs regular shut-eye to keep from losing his mind, so he keeps it in his routine. Let's check back on the community tab with him. The sheer volume of intel has absolutely exploded, with everyone pushing their limits to clear these deadly floors. He discovers some crucial tips. For instance, the strength stat does not just boost arms and legs. It upgrades every single muscle, meaning leveling it up early is a genius play. Sure, some players debated it, but the advice seemed legitimate enough to test. Plus, it actually helped him handle his own brutal difficulty level. Suddenly, he spots a horde of smaller goblins hunkered down in trenches. Dropping to a crouch, he observes them closely. There are way too many of them down there. He leaps into the air, spreading his wings to glide right over their defense lines. One scout looks up, only to get its skull instantly crushed by a heavy overhead strike. The beast's death rattle alerts the entire horde. Within seconds, a dozen of them swarm him at once. He moves like a blur, cutting them down instantly. His growth speed is unreal. As a goblin archer targets him, he has a sudden realization. The only people who can save Earth from becoming a literal hell are the players. He absolutely must beat this tutorial. His focus is laser-sharp game, more power. Get faster. Meanwhile, the scene shifts, showing us that corrupt representative confederation once again. A low-level player begs the leader for mercy, pleading that they can't survive with even fewer supplies. Before he can finish, a brutal kick slams his head. Yes, their own leader did that. This scumbag claims absolute control of the first floor lobby. Grinding his heel into the player's skull, he snarls, demanding how a mere slave dared challenge a floor without his explicit permission. The psycho boss orders his goons to punish anyone who helped this guy raid. Just like that, the poor man's allies are dragged out and beaten half to death right in the lobby. They cannot die here since the lobby heals them, but they feel every single ounce of agony. The man begs him to stop through endless tears, while the leader just laughs maniacally. He boasts that this world is paradise and his kingdom is almost ready. That wraps up this chapter, setting up a future clash between these two. Just pure, chaotic laughter. I am going to end you. Moving on, our main character is busy sharpening his throwing knife. He admits he is still adapting to this crazy life. It has been 10 days of non-stop goblin hunting, and these creatures are actually using smart tactics. They erect wooden barriers, plan formations, and wield everything from crossbows to magic staffs. Thankfully, his massive wings easily block incoming arrows, rendering their efforts totally useless. By hovering in midair inside his protective wing cocoon, he can advance safely. This strategy makes clearing them a breeze, but his shield is taking a serious beating. Returning to the lobby would fix his gear, but backtracking constantly ruins his momentum. He decides to replace his sword and shield once he clears the fourth floor. He realizes he was relying too heavily on passive blessings. However, after days of continuous combat, he unlocked multiple new skills. His stagnant stats are finally climbing again, proving that versatile battle experience beats mindless grinding every single time. He wasted the early floors just dodging arrows, so his close combat mastery only spiked because he was forced to fight these tricky goblins head-on. As he reflects, a thunderous roar suddenly startles him from behind. This new goblin looks way bulkier and tougher than any minion he has faced so far. Drawing his blade, he preps for a duel. This opponent is slightly smaller but radiates sheer danger. It is time for a proper, one-on-one showdown. The monster charges, and our hero steadies his guard. Suddenly, the beast's fist ignites with a red glow. Boom! A devastating punch hits him square in the gut. Leaping backward, he wonders what just happened. That attack felt like an instant teleportation. Before he can recover, the creature is already in his face, preparing another strike. He triggers his battle concentration. Even though he anticipates the trajectory, the heavy blow still connects cleanly. Reeling backward, he flashes forward with teleportation and smashes a counter punch directly into its jaw. He is completely shocked. If he gets caught by that technique with his guard down, is game over for him. The monster winds up again, forcing our hero to unleash Telleria's wings to strike back instantly. This forces the beast back while keeping him safe. Staring each other down, he realizes his teeth are actually chipped from that heavy impact. What kind of broken skill is this? It is highly unusual that the creature can spam it without any cooldown. As the beast charges to pummel him again, our hero hurls his sword directly at it. The goblin blocks with its forearms as expected. Closing the distance, our hero draws a knife from his inventory and throws it, but the monster dodges again. This gets him close, giving him a massive speed advantage. The beast blocks, tightening its guard. Trust me, you and I do not want to miss the conclusion next time. Alright, you and I are jumping right back into the action where our guy lands a heavy kick, teleports mid-air, and completely shatters the beast's defense. He lands a punch but takes a brutal counter straight to the face, nearly knocking him cold. Sent flying backward, he instantly recovers, his mind racing as he reaches for his dagger. Drawing the blade, he drives it straight into the unconscious monster's skull. With the threat neutralized, the system grants him his reward, the legendary birthstone of Gorat. He collapses in pure relief, complaining that the system threw a totally broken enemy at him. Aren't goblins supposed to be absolute weaklings? Still, a level-up notification pops up, and he finds a glowing healing spring nearby. Resting by this fountain right outside the boss room, he takes a drink while reflecting on just how incredibly overpowered that last goblin truly was. Fully healed, he approaches the final boss room. Since the fourth floor was already a nightmare, this boss will be insanely strong. He pauses, wondering if rushing in now is just a death wish. After weighing his options, he decides to retreat back to the lobby. Impatience will only get him killed, so he is sticking to his trusted, slow and steady strategy. Hearing news of the real world made him anxious, but now he is back in the lobby on day 14 for his third attempt. At level 8, his stats are through the roof, proving his growth is absolutely insane. His mastery over his active blessings feels incredibly natural now. Without warning, he makes his move back to the dungeon floor, standing once again before the massive gates of the boss room. Taking a deep breath, he pushes the gates open. A violent wind sweeps over him as the teleportation magic triggers, leaving him stranded on a dark, freezing mountain peak at night. As he scans the unfamiliar terrain, a system message flashes, ordering him to assassinate the Goblin King. He tenses up, immediately scanning the darkness to locate his target's hiding spot. Stuck halfway up the peak, he has to choose climb up or go down. Watch closely, because his decision to head straight up changes everything. Scaling the steep cliffs, he finally spots a massive fortress wall of the summit. Peering through his scope, he counts 20 guards. The main gate is heavily fortified, but his wings might offer a sneaky alternative. Making his move, he sprints toward the fortress. The moment he reaches the base, he activates teleportation, launches himself upward, and easily scales the high wall. Landing silently, he creeps up behind an unsuspecting sentry and swiftly slits its throat. He plans to quietly eliminate all the guards first, then search the entire base for the king. With the goblin down, he breathes a sigh of relief, thanking his level 4 stealth skill. This high-stakes infiltration feels exactly like one of those stressful stealth games from his old life. But the quiet doesn't last. A scout in a nearby tower spots him and begins screaming in pure panic, alerting the entire fortress to his presence. A wild grin spreads across his face as he decides stealth was always optional anyway. Activating the wings of Talaria, he promises that not a single monster is escaping this place alive. As morning breaks, the entire fortress lies dead, completely wiped out. Standing on the battlements, he stares at the breathtaking horizon, realizing this world is far too detailed to be some virtual simulation or magical illusion. This could easily be a real planet somewhere in the universe. The sheer realism of it makes him think that spending his life here might actually be a pretty good deal. Shaking off the distraction, he focuses on his tally. He cleared out 32 enemies, but they were far weaker than the floor 4 instructors, and there were barely any of them. Securing this outpost was a breeze. Unfortunately, the Goblin King was nowhere to be found. Looking toward a massive city in the distance, he realizes his true target is waiting there. The Valley City is enormous, guarded by towering mountain peaks. At its heart lies a grand castle, the perfect lair for a king. Peering closer, he notices incredibly advanced architecture. The streets are neat and well kept. This is no primitive tribal camp, it is an actual civilization. He begins to wonder if these creatures are far more advanced than mere goblins. He expected wild, savage monsters, but thousands of them live here in organized harmony. The sheer scale is mind-blowing. It would take a full day to reach the valley floor. Worse, 4 massive forts guard the peaks in every direction. With a city this size, they could easily field over 100,000 soldiers. Getting surrounded out in the open means instant death. An open battle is suicide, leaving him with only 2 real options: strike the central castle or raid the outer forts. Suddenly, he spots movement. Peering through his scope, we see a goblin cavalry unit of 30 riders charging straight for his position. This is where things get really interesting. This actually works out perfectly for him, since he can defend from the fort. Descending from the wall, he knows they will have a nightmare trying to break through these heavy gates. If the situation turns south, he can easily retreat into the mountains. His strategy is clear: systematically conquer all 4 outposts to bleed their forces dry. Once their defenses crumble, he will slip into the city streets, pick them off one by one, and assassinate the king. Fast forward to night 17 of his 3rd attempt. As a goblin shrieks, he snaps at it to shut up. Vaulting onto a watchtower, he notes that these monsters actually coordinate their movements and communicate in real time. Sentries screamed alarms while riders broke off to alert the city. Even without understanding their tongue, he can tell their captain fought desperately just to buy the messengers enough time to escape. That captain sacrificed himself just so his comrades could warn the capital. He cannot help but respect that devotion. These are definitely not the mindless beasts he expected. It honestly feels like they are just defending their homeland while he acts as the invading monster. They might be fighting to protect their families. Respect aside, they are still his targets. Spreading his wings, he glides down the mountain, hunting the fleeing messengers with ruthless efficiency. No one gets away to sound the alarm. Swooping in, he cleaves 1 rider in half. The remaining scouts panic. Over the last week, the enemy sent squads of 20, 30, and then 50 soldiers. Once they deployed over 100, he simply flew to another fort and conquered it instead. Thanks to the wings of Talaria, he can travel between outposts in under 3 hours. Meanwhile, the enemy infantry takes an entire day to march because they have to route through the central city first. In short, their slow armies cannot match his insane aerial mobility. Stubborn as ever, they keep sending 200 reinforcements to each fort only for him to slaughter them all. He has wiped out hundreds of soldiers single-handedly, completely dictating the flow of the war. They honestly believed a force of 200 would be enough to bring him down. But inside a choke point like a fort, he can slaughter 200 enemies with ease, especially after gaining 2 more levels. His rapid growth from conqueror life over the past week is hard to believe. Suddenly, the scene shifts to the main castle, where the mighty Goblin King sits upon his throne. Simultaneously, our hero watches through his scope as an army of 800 goblins begins to assemble. The numbers are starting to get seriously intimidating. They must breed like rabbits to summon an army this massive. Trust me, you and I are going to want to see how he survives this oncoming storm. Alright, you and I are about to watch this guy break a whole army. After a week of non-stop fighting, the goblin forces are completely exhausted, their cavalry decimated, and their foot soldiers looking clueless. Barely 1 out of every 5 goblins actually knows how to swing a sword. They are literally scraping the bottom of the barrel now. It is time to march on the castle and burn everything down. He still treats these creatures like mindless game monsters that will just respawn. But then, a system notification pops up: the god of duels is seriously unhappy with Hoja for playing dirty. Our hero snaps back, asking if he was supposed to just commit suicide by charging head-on. Suddenly, another alert flashes. This time, the god of chaos chimed in, saying he absolutely loved the strategy. Hey, at least someone appreciates his style, even if it is a creepy dark deity. Regardless of who is watching, it is time to move. Hoja sets his sights on the massive goblin capital. Before long, he is soaring high above the city streets. Slipping past their defenses, he lands quietly on a rooftop. The infiltration is a total success, and now he needs a plan. Should he hit and run, or start massive fires across the streets? Setting the town ablaze seems way more effective. Once the fire spreads, there is no way they can put it out by themselves. Burning an entire city just for a distraction? That is cold-blooded. But Hoja is focused on one thing, causing maximum panic to throw the goblin defense forces into absolute disarray. If the main army returns, he can easily retreat or slip into the shadows. But as he plans his next move, he spots something unexpected: a goblin mother and child, sharing a happy moment. All around them, families are laughing and playing. It hits him like a truck. Watching their peaceful daily lives, he begins to realize these goblins are just normal people living normal lives. Now, watch this carefully, because everything he believed is about to shatter. He starts doubting if this world is really just a fake game simulation. If these people are real, then he is not a hero at all. To them, he is the ruthless, unstoppable monster who showed up out of nowhere to slaughter their families. That realization hurts. He thinks back to the goblin who tried to speak before dying. None of them went down without a fight. They resisted until their very last breath, staring at him with pure, burning hatred. Some wept over the bodies of their fallen friends. Up until now, he felt absolutely nothing while taking lives, completely convinced that he was just playing some virtual reality game. But that cold comfort is gone. He always assumed his victims would just respawn like standard NPCs. Now, he is haunted by the terrifying possibility that they are dead forever. Unable to burn the city, he flies straight toward the royal castle before the guards can mobilize. Gliding above the fortress, he searches for any clue where the king might be hiding. Scanning the walls, he spots a heavily barricaded window and charges straight through, shattering the glass. Instantly, elite goblin guards rush to protect their king. He definitely found the throne room. The 4 elite bodyguards look tough, but he remains completely unfazed. Ready to end this, he triggers his teleportation skill, blinking through the room and shredding every guard in his path. Within seconds, the room is cleared, and he stands directly before the king with absolutely no one left to protect him. He draws his blade from his inventory to deliver the final blow, but the king suddenly raises a single, calm hand. The protagonist pauses, frozen in confusion by the gesture. The king speaks, but the language is totally foreign. Still, it is clear he is not going to fight back. Our hero just sighs, unable to comprehend a single word of his speech. Looking closely at the king's weary face, it is almost impossible not to feel some pity. Since the monarch refuses to fight, Hoja decides to make the final blow quick and completely painless. He expects a sense of victory, but as the king falls, he spots small goblin children trembling in the corner. He panics, trying to show them he means no harm. Look at their faces. You and I do not need to speak their language to know the absolute terror they are feeling right now. A system notification suddenly appears, announcing he cleared the 4th floor of the tutorial. He gets a list of rewards, along with a special offer from the gods for a unique skill. The deities cast their votes, passing it 12-7. Just like that, he is granted a strange new ability called Knowledge before the Age of Babel at level 5. An interesting mythological reference. As he wonders what this ancient skill actually does, the whispers of the crying children suddenly become clear, and he understands every single word. They call him a monster and scream that God will punish him. Desperate, he tries to explain that the system forced him to do this to survive. He claims he is only trying to escape this nightmare, but their burning hatred remains. Once again, he is left questioning if this world is far more real than he thought. Suddenly, a prompt reveals the god of adventure is blinding him, and his vision fades to black. Immediately after, the goddess of slowness reacts with absolute fury. What is going on? When his eyes open, he is back in the massive hall with Kirikiri. She stands with her back turned to him, but when she slowly faces him, her expression is completely different from normal. He can tell she is purposely avoiding his gaze. As he approaches, she softly asks if he hates her for shoving him into that dangerous portal during their last encounter. She starts rambling, blaming herself entirely before he can even speak. He reassures her that he is not angry, assuming she was just grossed out by all the blood on him. Yet she insists he should be furious. This triggers his memories of the final moments on that floor where his vision was forcibly cut and he was dragged back here. He realizes these higher beings can directly interfere with his body. Why did the god of adventure blind him, and why did the goddess of slowness react with such intense anger? Turning to Kirikira, he demands answers to all his stored-up questions. including the ones he skipped last time. He wants to know everything about these deities, especially why they are so fixated on his journey. After a brief silence, she reveals that the gods are watching him closely to see if he is worthy of becoming one of their divine apostles. That is huge news, leaving him even more confused. She explains that earning a god's gaze is rare, but becoming an apostle requires passing a hidden, incredibly difficult test. Pointing at him, she warns his situation is completely unheard of, and a choice is coming. Then, she explains the goddess of slowness. Her power is not just about slowing things down. She is the eternal guardian of time's endless flow. He can barely wrap his head around this complex divine concept. It is a lot to process. But when he asks about the god of adventure, she says his limit is up. He complains internally about spending 2 entire floors worth of points just for basic answers. Divine secrets are incredibly expensive. Kirikiri tells him to relax, but his dark memories instantly flash back. He softly agrees, looking completely exhausted. Stick with me as we see the rabbit girl guiding him on which high-level gear he should buy next. With her expert advice, he secures some incredible weapons, including a gladius blessed by a nameless deity with an incredibly useful passive effect. The handle will never slip from his grasp unless he wills it. He also snags a massive cavalry sword, though it blocks all magical or shamanic enhancements. Alright, let's jump right back in as our main character buys a standard-size sword plus a massive blade twice its size, securing his 2 main melee weapons. With each blade fitting a different tactical style, Ho knows both will be useful soon. But his final purchase is the real prize, the Punisher pistol. This beast fires devastating blasts by fusing raw gunpowder with pure magic. The only catch? It is brutal. After just 5 shots, the gun breaks completely. A weapon this overpowered obviously had to have a catch. Still, our main character was told it is absolutely essential for the 5th floor, so he bought it instantly. Because of that hefty price tag, he had to settle for a cheap backup shield. He admits these items are top tier, but they drain every single point he saved. Next time, he plans to rack up more points and upgrade his defense. With that done, the portal to the next floor finally opens. Before stepping through, Ho thanks Kirikiri and bids her farewell. She cheerily yells for him to do his best and bring cake next time, bringing a smile to his face. Honestly, he was wondering when she would bring up food. He steps through the portal and lands right in the 5th floor lobby. He has finally reached the 5th floor. By now, the faces and names of the people from the very first lobby are fading away. It is probably because several long months have already passed. He has even forgotten the girl he almost shared a child with. That realization hits incredibly hard. Shaken by these heavy thoughts, a visibly depressed Ho decides he needs to clear his mind. Tackling the next floor with a cluttered mind is way too risky. This brings him back to the burning question from the 4th floor. Were those goblins actually real? He admits they were far from the savage, brainless monsters he expected. They had a functioning society, loving families, real emotions, technology, and a hierarchy. In his eyes, the only true difference between them and humans was their monstrous appearance. If they were more than just tutorial illusions, then what he did was straight-up murder. He executed them based on his own choices, and blaming the system now would be totally pointless. Now, pay attention here, because this is where he starts arguing with himself, trying to justify his actions because they attacked first. But he quickly rejects that weak excuse. The goblins were only defending their territory, not hunting him. Ultimately, he was the instigator, the aggressor, and the executioner. Ho frankly admits he slaughtered those goblins just to beat this tutorial. They stood in his path, so he put them down without mercy. He goes even further. If he ran into another goblin right now, he would still kill it. This tutorial is not a game. Back home, real people are still being slaughtered by monsters every day. If he gets stronger here, maybe he can go back and save them. But he corrects himself. It is not about saving the world. It is about protecting his family and close friends. Honestly, that mindset is completely relatable. Most of us would feel the exact same way. When push comes to shove, you protect your inner circle first. Not everyone is built to grind and suffer for the sake of all humanity. Most would only fight for those they hold dear. Still lost in thought within the lobby, Hojay realizes that if he ever wants to escape this tutorial, he has to conquer every single floor. With a clear purpose driving him forward, he will never hesitate to crush his foes. Those goblins were enemies from day one. He might have thrown the first punch, but peace was never an option. Keeping it simple, the winner takes all, just like his old days as a professional gamer. In this brutal environment, the strong devour the weak, except here, a single loss means absolute death. That is why our protagonist knows he cannot hesitate for a single second. He accepts that this guilt will linger forever. In a quiet moment, he thinks of Kirikiri. realizing even she was genuinely worried about his sanity. Pacing down the corridor, he accepts there are no easy answers, but he cannot ignore the weight either. It is a burden he must carry, a moral dilemma he will revisit from time to time. By facing it, those dark thoughts will not consume him alive. Meanwhile, the scene transitions to a different lobby, home to the representative confederation. The atmosphere is incredibly grim, and the players look completely broken. Two sisters appear, with one urgently warning the other not to access her inventory, as doing so is strictly forbidden. This corrupt group dominates weaker players through raw intimidation, enforcing strict rules under threat of violence. Despite the danger, one sister checks the guards and secretly slips some dried meat out of her inventory. I know what you were thinking. Why risk it for some food? Well, she tells her sister to hide and ration it, knowing that if they are caught, severe punishment and losing all their remaining food is guaranteed. The long-haired sister explains that these tyrants possess superhuman strength, brutally beating anyone who dares to resist them within an inch of their lives. She explains the only difference between them and the leader is timing. His faction arrived during the first attempt, while the sisters came in the second. By clearing more tutorial floors, the veterans secured massive power advantages. That is why they block others from leaving the lobby to challenge the trials independently. As they hide the meat, she deeply regrets handing over their weapons without putting up a fight. By analyzing everything around them, from the high-tech menus and dimensional portals to the weapons and status screens, it honestly feels like they are trapped inside a survival game. Even so, she finds it highly frustrating because if this is a game, the system should explain the world, where they are, and how they can actually grow stronger like the elite faction. In short, she desperately needs information, but that fleeting hope instantly vanishes. A violent thug working for the Confederation leader spots her accessing her secret inventory. The very moment he locks eyes on them, danger is imminent. Things escalate at terrifying speed, and a blood-curdling scream echoes through the hall. The scene cuts to the ruthless leader, who sneers that there are always parasites who do not know their place. He resolves to make a brutal example of her. Suddenly, we flash back to a dark tunnel resembling the tutorial's very first floor. The Confederation leader stands there, panting heavily. This is a crucial memory of his grueling first attempt at conquering the first floor. Surprisingly, he had pushed all the way to the recovery spring right outside the boss room, but at the gate, a cold notification declared his first attempt over, stating he had officially failed to clear the first floor. His run ended right then and there. Teleported instantly to a separate hall, he looked around to find dozens of other failures from the first floor. Seeing them all fail brought him a twisted sense of relief. Shortly after, the second attempt of the tutorial kicked off, and fresh players began flooding into the waiting lobby. He could tell instantly that these newcomers were just as helpless as he was. They had failed their first try, too. Watching them panic with absolutely no guidance, he cooked up a dark scheme to declare himself king and dominate this space. Seriously, this guy thinks he is a tactical mastermind. After seizing control of the first floor lobby, his representative's faction pushed onto the second floor and immediately began extorting supplies from terrified newcomers. Yeah, this scumbag is a massive issue, and his group did not stop there. They banned anyone from challenging the trials solo, torture-testing rebels to make bloody examples of them. To be fair, actually dying in the waiting zone is incredibly difficult due to the crazy auto-regeneration. Still, it is not impossible, as we are going to find out soon enough. No matter how long it takes, players can return to the lobby after the second attempt right before the boss gate. For 29 days, survival is your own responsibility. But at the end of the line, a special reward awaits this lovely tyrant king. Just look at that smug face. That is exactly how he preyed on vulnerable, terrified players who lacked the courage to progress, turning them into his personal servants. Thankfully, that wraps up the backstory for this absolute clown of a leader. To be completely honest, you and I are probably way more used to our main character throwing hands instead of sitting through this talking. For real, that was way too much talking. Let us get straight back to the main action. Speaking of our hero, the scene cuts back to Hojie tracking his rapid level gains on the previous floor. Alright, you and I are back, and our main character's stats just spiked, but his resistances stayed flat. Honestly, makes sense since he barely got touched on that floor. And get this, he actually wanted to fail on purpose, just to boost his pain tolerance. Talk about a complete masochist. Top-tier player or not, this guy is absolutely out of his mind. Staring at his status screen, he recalls the goddess of slowness being absolutely furious with him. But this brand new message, it sounds completely different from her usual angry rants. Now he's wondering if she's even mad anymore. Suddenly, another notification pops up, and he opens it instantly. It's from some guy with a super complicated name, so let's just call him Kim. That immediately grabs our hero's attention because he definitely recognizes that name. Eager to see what this Kim guy wants, he jumps straight into a private chat. Kim starts sucking up immediately, calling him incredible for reaching the 5th floor so fast. He explains that most players are still stuck on the 2nd floor of hell difficulty, while hard difficulty players can't even get past the 3rd. Apparently, that is a massive problem for everyone. Deep down, the main character knows reaching the 5th floor would have been way harder without that broken authority skill. He realizes nobody in the community chat has any clue about it. And honestly, neither do we. It's tough to tell if this skill was ever brought up before, or if it's just a translation glitch. Then, Kim asks if he's heard of the Representative Confederation or the Representatives Guild, depending on your translation. Let's just go with a guild to keep it simple. Our guy recalls getting a message from them before. Noting they seem incredibly shady, Kim agrees, adding that this sketchy guild has been secretly stealing supplies from brand new players. Knowing how they operate, this doesn't shock our main character one bit. But then Kim drops another bomb. They're also targeting the highest ranking players in the game. Now pay attention, because this is where the plot thickens. When asked why, Kim admits he's still investigating, then suddenly asks if our hero knows about the day of the Great Conference. He explains that a top-tier player got the leak directly from a moderator, maybe Kiri, maybe someone else. Honestly, it's not even clear if that top player was Kim himself. He explains it's going to be the tutorial's very first joint event, bringing players from every difficulty level together in one place. And that's all the info he's got. Kim warns that the big event is coming up fast, surprising our main character with how much inside info he actually has. Kim tells him to keep this chat strictly classified until they know more about the guild, and he agrees. With that, they wrap up their chat. Our hero is positive that Sketchy Confederation will crash the big meeting, likely trying to recruit or ally with all the top-tier players. Reflecting on just how brutal that 4th floor boss room was, he knows he absolutely has to gear up and train hard for whatever is coming next. Whether it's a monster or a human blocking his path, he refuses to lose. As the days tick down, the big meeting draws near. And trust me, someone is definitely getting put in the dirt soon. Cue a roaring lizard man. A second later, boom, smash right in the face with a shield. What a clean hit. Another beast lunges at our hero, but he evades it effortlessly. For these monsters, it's already over. Combining his eyes of Teleria with teleportation, he blitzes the battlefield. The lizard struggles to defend itself, but our main character is just on a completely different level of speed. They lock eyes for a split second before he teleports again, instantly swapping weapons from his inventory. Before the beast can even blink, our hero is right in its face, driving his blade deep into its chest, clean, fast, and brutal. He keeps ripping through the pack like a blender. He notes that these 5th floor lizard men are reptilian types, and unlike those weak goblins, they are wildly aggressive. No trenches, no barricades, just pure aggression. They fight head-on with martial skills way beyond any goblin, making them a real threat. Luckily, after his massive power-up on the last floor, he can still slice through them without breaking a sweat. He realizes this is actually the perfect playground to master his brand new weapon. Deciding not to advance until he's fully comfortable with his single-edged sword, he calls it a day. Plus, the Great Conference is right around the corner, so he needs to prepare. Heading back to the lobby, he reveals that burn resistance is actually the absolute easiest stat to power up. Extreme temperatures require setting up annoying environments, while stone or numb resistance are even worse to grind. But burning? Now that is incredibly simple to farm. I know what you're thinking, this is crazy. He literally heats his hand until it smokes just to pass the time. But as he opens the community chat, everything goes into total, absolute chaos. Messages are flooding the screen non-stop. Apparently, a top-ranked player leaked details about the Great Conference on the main board, and the moment the community saw it, the entire chat exploded. Players who had only ever texted would finally get to meet face-to-face. For these trapped souls, this is easily the most peaceful and normal event they have seen yet. For people constantly risking death on every floor, this news felt like rain in a dry desert. Even so, our main character is highly skeptical that things will actually stay peaceful. Still, the massive hype gives the lobby a festive vibe, and even he gets a tiny bit excited. Right then, a system window flashes in front of him, announcing the big day has finally arrived. It grants him 24 hours to enter, warning that forced summoning starts in 5 hours. He immediately notices that the main floor timer has completely paused for the duration of this event. Right on cue, a glowing portal materializes. Without a single second of hesitation, he dives straight in. The moment he crosses over, a system screen pops up displaying the location details. Looking around, he recognizes this green field as the spot where he meets Kiri, meaning she is likely the host. As he scans the area, our main character spots a massive crowd already gathered. He begins threading his way through the massive gathering. Internally, he admits the atmosphere is incredibly lively, with people laughing and talking everywhere. The grand conference is officially underway. Suddenly, a guy recognizes him and runs over begging for an autograph. When our hero turns, the man introduces himself as Kim, his secret chat partner and a challenger from the normal difficulty. Kim confesses he was a massive fan of our protagonist back in his legendary pro gamer days. The two strike up a friendly conversation, keeping things totally casual for now. Shortly after, our main character asks about those shady figures from the representative guild. Kim notes they haven't arrived yet, likely waiting for the final second. Just then, the famous top rankers make their entrance. Kim warns him to stay alert, positive that the guild has allies among these elite players. Curious, he asks how our hero measures up against them. He pauses, then deadpans, saying he is insanely overpowered. A bit later, the two start mingling with the crowd, trying to gather more intel on the shady representatives guild. At one point, he quietly whispers to Kim, asking if any of those elite players are in league with the guild. Kim doubts it, so our hero departs to let them chat, though something still feels off. Strolling across the grass, our hero recalls the safety system rules. Absolute peace, meaning no PvP allowed. That sparks a hilarious question. What if he hurts himself? Smiling, he activates his masochistic self-harm skill. He tries slashing his own palm, but the blade simply slides off as if blocked by an invisible barrier. Pushing harder, he manages to draw blood, but the system instantly heals the wound. And trust me, you and I are going to want to see what happens next, because this absolute madman actually starts choking himself. What a legend. All right, you and I are jumping right into a moment where our main character tries to squeeze his own neck, but his hand is forced away. Before he can process it, Kim interrupts, making Hojie ask, "Wait, what was your name again?" Kim sighs, asking if he already forgot. Honestly, Hojie really respects Kim. In this brutal tutorial, finding a genuinely good guy who helps others without wanting anything in return is incredibly rare. He hopes they can stay friends. But in a hellhole like this, survival is never guaranteed. Kim could easily end up dead, just like Hojie's old friends from the first floor. As they chat, Hojie suggests they should have exposed the representative guild's dark actions on the community forums. Kim explains that exposing them is too dangerous for their informant, who is stuck in this very hall under the guild's tight control. Despite the constant danger, this brave soul still managed to slip Kim some crucial details. Kim hates seeing people suffer and desperately wishes he could stop this cycle of abuse. But Hojie realistically points out that it is almost impossible, especially since low-level players are too weak to interfere. Fear keeps most quiet. Still, Kim believes at least 10 normal difficulty players and at least one hard difficulty player are ready to stand against the guild. They all worry the guild will become unstoppable if it grows. Looking around, however, our main character knows one absolute truth: every single player gathered here is weaker than him. Back home, money and luxury clothes define status. Here, it is all about your weapons and armor. The way they shift their weight and keep their distance tells him everything. Lately, he has mastered reading these tiny physical details to judge skill. Combining what he knows from the forums and what he sees now, the massive power gap between him and the rest is undeniable. Easy mode players always seem a bit more relaxed than the rest. Honestly, that makes total sense, considering they can safely farm points without constantly dodging instant death traps. Meanwhile, normal players only earn enough points to survive. It is the hard difficulty challengers who really interest him. Now, pay attention here. Most hard mode players get stuck on the very first floors. Even with shared strategies, barely anyone reaches floor 3, leading to insane death rates. Yet, those third floor survivors, they are weirder than anyone else. Hojie figures the brutal difficulty is why they all look so incredibly grim. Seeing their struggles, our main character decides to step up and actually teach them. He explains they must build up their elemental resistances, specifically heat, since he previously cleared a massive fire trap. His advice is brutally simple: stay in the hazard until you are almost dead, then teleport back. When someone asks how they can even train heat resistance without a volcano, Hojie tells them to use a hot stone. Suddenly, he squeezes his fists so hard that actual smoke begins rising from his flesh. The crowd goes totally silent in shock. An onlooker nervously asks what his resistance level is, and Hojie casually mentions his heat and cold resistance are level 4, while his burn resistance is level 7. That completely blows their minds, and someone literally asks if he is some kind of monster. Amusingly, Hojie decides to keep quiet about his level 11 pain resistance. Suddenly, Kim warns him that the Confederation group has finally arrived. Hojie glares at their leader, already itching to throw some hands. But Kim steps up first to demand a talk. Now face to face with the guild leader, who arrogantly asks who he is, Kim steps up. He directly accuses them of stealing food and water, alongside brutally attacking other innocent players. The leader just sneers, demanding actual proof. He smugly tells Kim to show some evidence or shut up. As Kim tries to argue, Hojae senses a dangerous presence quickly approaching from behind. And look who decided to join the party, the creepy guy Hojae compares to Orochimaru. The dangerous group walking with him are likely the top rankers backing this corrupt guild. Hojae sizes up the situation, realizing his side only has a few normal difficulty players. Scanning their opponents, he spots some total weaklings mixed in with actual high-tier rankers from both normal and hard difficulties. The terrified players cowering behind the rankers are clearly the victims, making Hojae realize this corruption runs incredibly deep. Suddenly, his eyes lock onto one of the sisters from earlier. She desperately signals him, and we see our main character catch it instantly. She bolts toward him, and as the leader lunges to grab her, the moment you and I have been waiting for finally explodes. Hojae teleports, instantly slipping past the leader to shield her. In a flash, he drives a brutal punch right into the leader's gut, dropping him instantly. Standing as her shield, he asks what she wants him to do. She whispers to kill them all. Right then, the perspective shifts back to show what led her to this moment. She had been watching him, completely shocked that this was the legendary Lee Hojae. To her, he was the only calm soul here. Unlike the panicked crowd, he looked completely relaxed, like this was nothing. She knew her time was running out, and this event was her final shot. We discover that the ruthless Confederation leader actually murdered her long-haired sister, who passed down vital secrets right before her death. This crucial tutorial data was incredibly dangerous to hold, but she memorized every single word, fully prepared to risk her life for revenge. In those records, one name stood out: Hojae, the sole survivor of the nightmare-inducing hell difficulty. Honestly, almost everyone on the community forums wrote him off as a total liar. Despite the hate, he kept sharing detailed guide info to help beginners survive. Ironically, the normal difficulty rankers doubted him the most, though lately, even those top players have silently started relying on his words. For her, this was an all-or-nothing gamble. As their eyes locked across the crowded room, she desperately wondered if he had already realized she was the secret informant. If she wanted to destroy that bastard leader, she absolutely needed Hojae's monstrous strength. Stealing her resolve, she sprinted forward, screaming for help, and thankfully, saving people is second nature to him. Shattering the ground, he lands. Back in the present, Hojae remembers how helping others in the past usually backfired. Every single time he tried to play the hero, things just got worse. But today, he does not care. He cold-bloodedly asks her who she wants dead. The leader is clutching his stomach, barely standing, but still manages to scream, demanding why Hojae suddenly attacked him. His lackeys quickly back him up, shouting threats. But Hojae just unleashes his spectral wings and drops a bone-chilling warning: do not rush me, calm down, and face me properly. The sheer pressure paralyzes the entire room. Nobody dares to even breathe. Hojae makes it crystal clear that he is ready to slaughter every last one of them, openly inviting them to try. Realizing he is hopelessly outmatched, the leader tries to talk his way out, desperately claiming it is all a misunderstanding. He begs for just a few minutes to explain and negotiate peace. Ignoring his pathetic pleas, Hojae steps forward, offering to help him train his pain resistance instead. The pure terror in those words almost gives the corrupt leader a literal heart attack. Panicking, he orders his men to attack. A lackey swings a sword at Hojae, but our main character catches the blade barehanded, instantly crushing the guy's arm into complete mush. That must have hurt like hell. Hojae uses the screaming guy's head as a literal stepping stone, launching himself forward. He targets the heavy axe wielder next, driving a devastating kick straight into his stomach before the guy can even guard. Hojae explains that while the tutorial system dampens lethal damage, it does not completely erase the pain. He casually delivers a light slap, which instantly knocks the giant out cold. The man's neck snaps at a horrific angle. It looks completely fatal, but the system's auto-heal kicks in to patch him up. Watching this, Hojae notices a major flaw in their protection. And trust me, as you and I can see, internal damage still piles up in their organs. Blades are blocked, but raw physical impacts only get slightly weakened. Alright, you and I are diving back in. Even with regeneration, they still feel every ounce of pain as our main character notices Choi chasing the escaping guild representatives. It is a smart move, but even if they escape, he knows he could easily track them down. Suddenly, someone behind him praises his combat moves and asks about his skills. Ho turns around to see who this stranger is. Choi shouts his name, Young Jin Chan. The protagonist instantly recognizes him as a top ranker from normal difficulty's 6th floor. Young Jin Chan sneers that our main character is not the only one with unique skills. Purple energy flares around his spear as he throws out a brutal insult and demands a fight. That purple glow intensifies. Ho watches closely, analyzing what this power-up does. Is it raw strength or a speed boost? Just like those goblin soldiers from the earlier floors. Our protagonist tells him to stop posing and bring everything he has. Calling him a total loser, Ho strikes first, and young Jin Chan lunges forward with a sharp spear thrust. But our main character easily slips the attack, calling out his sloppy form. Throwing wild thrusts leaves wide openings, and Ho instantly exploits it, landing a deep slash. Just as he expected, slashing attacks are incredibly effective. Watching the guy drop his spear and scramble for it, our main character can only sigh. This is a top 5 ranker. Ho turns his gaze back toward the Alliance leader and his remaining thugs. Pulling dual swords from his inventory, he decides it's time to teach these scumbags who really runs things. The leader turns pale, absolutely terrified of his fate. Sometime later, we find Ho taking a peaceful nap, thinking this breezy spot is actually a fantastic place to catch some rest. It would be perfect if these idiots would stop screaming and arguing. Just then, a system notification alerts him that his basic sword mastery has reached level 7. That level up makes sense since he got to test various attack patterns on targets far weaker than goblins. Normally, his skills only grew through desperate, passive defense blocking with his shield and hitting vitals of overpowering enemies. Weak opponents meant he could test aggressive moves. Now here is the part you and I should watch closely, because looking at this mess, he won't get to experiment anymore. Meanwhile, Choi wasted no time while Ho was wrecking the Alliance. Instead of jumping into the brawl, he quietly tied up the defeated members, pinning them securely to the dirt. Our main character wonders what to do with these guys now that the beatdown is over. Right on cue, the informant steps forward. The girl who leaked the info about the victims suggests a brilliant way to dissolve the Alliance. Send the first floor challengers up to the 2nd floor and prepare for any potential revenge plots. By doing this, the Alliance can never exploit helpless new rookies ever again. The leader's enforcers will become literal training dummies as punishment. This allows the victims to conquer their fear, unite, and build a powerful new resistance force. She gathers everyone in the courtyard, passionately sharing her own trauma and exposing the Alliance's horrific crimes. Her words completely win over the neutral players. By uniting these survivors, she rallies them together to form a brand new unified faction right then and there. With Choi's backing, even the stubborn rankers agree to follow her lead. Now, the victims are receiving combat training, using those captured Alliance scumbags as literal punching bags. Sure, critics might call it morally questionable, but they did what they had to do. With 13 hours left before the event wrapped up, Ho wondered if he should just sleep the day away. Suddenly, he senses someone approaching. Without even opening his eyes, he quietly praises their hard work. Looking up, he sees Julia standing right in front of him. She sits beside him, letting a heavy, awkward silence fill the air. Ho finds the atmosphere incredibly weird. Julia softly thanks him once again on behalf of her sister and the survivors. Our main character had no idea she even had a sister, but she continues. Admitting her next request is incredibly shameless. He braces himself, realizing he's in for a very long story. Oh boy. She pours her heart out, detailing everything from her life before the tutorial to her sister's tragic death. It is a heavy, painful tale of survival and loss. Finishing her story, she begs him for help, promising to repay the massive debt at any cost. This sudden plea catches our hero so off guard he actually stutters, claiming that's not even the issue. He is visibly flustered, which is rare. He asks if she wants him to train her, but she immediately shakes her head. She wants absolute power, and she wants it right now. Who wouldn't want that? But let's pause for a second because what he does next is completely unhinged. He solves her problem by straight up handing her a loaded Glock. She asks how powerful it is, and he confesses he has never actually tested it. Still, he warns her to handle it with extreme care. What a brilliant solution. Giving a deadly firearm to a deeply traumatized girl who just lost her sister? Surely nothing could possibly go wrong. She thanks him, swearing to live for others and protect her new group. To our hero's disappointment, she adds that this crusade will be her repayment to him. Watching her hold the weapon with intense focus, the protagonist asks where she is heading. She turns back slightly, coldly stating she's going to test drive her new toy. She already knows her target. Suddenly, we see the Alliance leader getting kicked square in the face. Groaning on the floor, he vows to get his ultimate revenge one day. Yeah, good luck with that, pal. The panicked Alliance boss quickly asks what she is planning to do. Her response is ice cold. Whatever happens next, she's going to enjoy every single second of it. While our protagonist watches from a distance, she pulls a small bottle from her inventory. He guesses the bottle contains lubricant. She rubs some on her hands and brutally jams her fingers straight into the leader's eyes, making him scream in absolute agony. She ruthlessly digs her fingers deeper into his eye sockets before raising the Glock. Shoving the cold metal barrel directly into his empty eye socket, she pulls the trigger. As the brain matter splatters, our protagonist realizes instant death bypasses the safe zone's automatic regeneration. If you kill them fast enough, the healing system simply cannot trigger in time. Absolute lethal force overrides everything. She calmly turns around, letting him know the gun was incredibly useful. Watching her, our main character quietly realizes he might have met someone even more unhinged than himself. He notes that she dragged the leader away, devoid of joy or purpose. But then, raising her hands to the heavens, she declared a new mission: protect law and public order on the Korean server. Just like that, a civilian militia was born. Third session, day 28, 12:30 a.m. 2 days had passed since the conference. The fifth floor raid was supposed to resume, but our hero delayed it to help establish this new civilian militia. Tons of survivors eagerly joined the ranks. Several had already made up their minds during the meeting. While some despised her brutal methods, many players from normal and hard difficulties were deeply inspired by her conviction. She slowly became a legendary, Joan of Arc-style figure to them. The protagonist explains that this militia established structure to safeguard vulnerable players. This system was not meant for elite high-floor rankers, but to protect the weak, struggling on the bottom floors. The core rules were incredibly straightforward. First, no internal violence. Second, no murder. Third, absolutely no stealing. And fourth, never violate another human being's free will. Many objected to the harsh code, but they still executed 3 more alliance leaders, sparing the rest under close watch. And that is where we leave it today. Trust me, you and I are in for a wild ride. Let's dive back in as our protagonist realizes he does not need to worry about rebellion. After the trauma he left them in, everyone knows these newcomers desperately need clear rules. To prepare for the next wave, they will distribute manuals through the community. By dawn, everything finally settles down, and our main character admits he absolutely hates this kind of hands-on work. Doing chores just does not suit him. The only place he truly belongs is right here, standing before the final boss gate on the 5th floor. With his saber skills significantly improved, it is time to say goodbye to this floor. Despite some lingering anxiety, he trusts his abilities and believes he can clear it. With that, he steps inside. A blinding purple light shines at the center, revealing a terrifying monster that looks like a lizard man. Suddenly, a system window alerts him that the trial begins in 30 seconds. A massive glass barrier separates our protagonist and the beast, setting up a brutal one-on-one duel. He wonders if this single lizard man is actually stronger than an entire city-sized goblin horde. Once the 30 seconds run out, the glass shatters and a message appears, ordering him to defeat the Warrior of Black Shadows. It is an epic transition into the next chapter of this brutal climb. Now it is our protagonist versus this jacked lizard in a pure one-on-one showdown. He immediately readies his sword and shield while the lizard beast lets out a low growl. For just a split second, our hero feels a wave of pressure. One question burns in his mind: will this legendary warrior strike first? From the monster's stance, he knows this is no ordinary beast. Just feeling that heavy aura is proof enough. It is the first time he has faced an enemy this incredibly cautious. Despite the thoughts racing through his mind, he forces himself to stay calm. He realizes something crucial. They are standing face to face because their combat levels are likely neck and neck right now. The monster's face looks solid as stone, but he still wants to test its limits. Watch closely now, because this is where things are about to get serious, for real. Suddenly, we cut away to a waiting room on a different floor, showing the mysterious girl who has been chatting with our protagonist through the community window. He tells her that Kirikiri recommended a bizarre shopping list: a pistol, bug spray, smoke bombs, and a high-speed potion. It is expensive, but he insists she buy everything. She hesitates, saying it will drain all the points he gifted her, and remembers an old man's advice to not rely too heavily on gear. He agrees, but warns that this 5th floor boss is far more dangerous than he anticipated. Her name and chosen difficulty remain a total mystery for now, but this confirms our main character can transfer points to other players. No doubt we will learn more about that later. Back in the boss room, the battle resumes. Judging by the monster's cautious stance, it is clear this lizard man is playing things incredibly safe. This stance offers maximum defense. Usually, these beasts are prideful and hyper-aggressive, making this cautious approach highly unusual. Our protagonist notes that this is no ordinary foe, but a rare, dark, and terrifying variant. But as our hero prepares his move, something unbelievable happens. He suddenly begins to understand the lizard warrior's spoken words. The beast actually praises him, claiming he has never met such a formidable human. He quickly remembers the skill gifted by the gods, knowledge before the Tower of Babel, which allows him to translate monster speech. The lizard warrior admits he can smell and sense his immense power. He declares it an honor to fight him, stating he will die with absolutely no regrets if he loses today. Falling to a true warrior is a badge of honor. In fact, our hero can tell the beast is genuinely thrilled about this match. This proves his rare language skill does more than just translate basic text. Realizing the human can actually understand his speech, the lizard warrior is left completely stunned. Lamenting that our hero was born human, the warrior offers him 3 free attacks to show respect. Our protagonist accepts with a nod, knowing that overcoming an opponent who focuses entirely on defense and counters is going to be a massive challenge. Activating his skills, he prepares to punish that careless offer. He charges in at high speed, aiming to chain his Teleria wings and teleport emblem to instantly overwhelm his opponent. But right as his wings are about to connect, she suddenly turns her entire body into black smoke, completely catching him off guard. This power is not just unusual, it is downright broken. He wonders if her reflexes are boosted by a skill like battle focus. Suddenly, a trident thrusts forward, and he barely dodges. This forces our protagonist to back off and create some distance. He realizes she was actually holding back to keep her word. That is terrible news. He never expected an opponent to dodge his wings and teleportation. And, yeah, I know what you are thinking. Wait, what? She wants to marry him? Seriously? Our guy completely freezes, wondering if he heard her right. It turns out this terrifying warrior is actually a female. She throws him a suggestive look and giggles. Yeah, no, that is not happening. He hurls his sword, but it just passes through her smoke. Expecting her to phase through it, he instantly charges behind his thrown weapon. The plan is to create an opening, but she casually uses her trident to redirect his physical strike. She tells him to slow down, making this fight incredibly weird. Suddenly, she whips her massive tail. He blocks it with his wings and slams her right back with his shield. Even while flying backward, she thrusts her trident again. He deflects it with his shield, and the force pushes them apart. Breathing heavily, our hero struggles to comprehend what is happening. She took a direct shield strike to the face, yet still countered instantly. Touching her fresh wound, she looks like she actually enjoyed the pain. The protagonist can only stare in absolute shock. She calls out, saying she has waited forever to find a strong male. She even claims that with a warrior like him, they can easily overcome the whole different species barrier. She is not sure if they can have children, but she wants to try. What in the world is happening? He is so bewildered he wonders if his translation skill is broken. Looking directly at him, she introduces herself as Idol Taru, asking for his name in return. With a freezing response, our protagonist tells her he has no reason to share his name with a lizard, immediately activating battle focus. Gripping her weapon tightly, she asks why he is rejecting her. He replies honestly, why wouldn't he? This lizard monster actually thinks she can replace Kirikiri as the top companion. Hearing this, Idol Taru pouts, claiming judging someone by their looks is wrong. He finds this weird since he never even brought up her appearance. It seems even other monsters might find her unattractive. He forces himself to refocus before this weird banter ruins his concentration. He realizes Idol Taru is nothing like the typical brainless lizard monsters. Her speed, weapon mastery, and tactical approach are on another level. Instead of rushing blindly, she moves with perfect precision, dodges effortlessly, and counters the exact second she spots an opening. Her insane reaction speed allows her to slip away easily, combined with that smoke ability that renders her immune to physical damage. Essentially, it is a built-in Logia power. That is a fun shout-out for the anime fans. Our hero analyzes the exchange, searching for a viable counter until he realizes her smoke evasion must have a weakness. That intangible form only lasts for a brief moment. She phased through his sword, but still took the impact of the shield. That means she cannot spam it, just like his teleport emblem. And that is where we leave it. Trust me, you and I are definitely going to want to see how this crazy battle ends. Alright, you and I are diving right into a crazy showdown as Idol Taru threatens to use brute force to keep Ho by her side, leaving our main character wondering how many wild personalities she has packed into one body. Suddenly, she charges in, absolutely furious. Ho immediately realizes her blind rage is a massive advantage, but as she swings her heavy trident, the sheer pressure tells him he cannot block this strike head-on. He activates battle focus, letting the trident pierce straight through his shield to wound his arm. It looks like a mistake, but this was actually his plan all along. Ho cleanly slices her arm off, but she refuses to back down. She lunges forward, trying to bite him with razor-sharp teeth, forcing him to use his teleport emblem to escape. A split second later, she feels his brutal follow-up strike. Ho coldly warns her that human or monster, it does not matter, anyone blocking his path is going down. Ho finds it strange she did not use her smoke form, leaving her to take massive damage. Gasping in pain, she calls him incredibly cruel once again. She realizes he was actually aiming for her head, not just her arm. Realizing he truly tried to kill her, she declares she will no longer see him as a partner, but as an enemy to destroy. Instantly, her body begins to mutate, doubling in size as raw muscle tears through her clothes. This fight just got a whole lot more dangerous. She stomps the ground, splitting the stone as the entire hall trembles. Ho quickly prepares himself and barely manages to dodge her devastating charge. He realizes she might bring the whole place down, feeling like a literal video game boss. Suddenly, she rushes in with a massive punch, trapping him against a stone pillar. Now watch closely, because he only has 2 teleport charges left. With no other choice, he dodges at the very last second as her punch shatters the pillar into dust. Instantly, he pulls his sword out, thrusting straight for her chest. But another heavy fist flies in, forcing his wings to barely block the impact. The shockwave is so intense that Ho genuinely thinks he might die. Landing with a hard crash, he admits her strength is completely off the charts. She mocks him, asking if he is giving up now as they face off. Out of nowhere, Ho asks for a quick timeout, leaving her completely confused. He claims her confession was too sudden and he needs time to process. In his head, he knows this is the ultimate excuse when a direct rejection is too awkward. He actually heard that line twice back in college. When she asks how long he needs, he says just a moment, using the pause to pull the trident from his shield. He realizes she is completely unpredictable and dangerous. That rejection line was nothing but a sneaky trick to buy himself a few precious seconds. He downs healing potions from his inventory to recover, gaining a vital edge. When she innocently asks if he is done thinking, he stalls for more time, but he is not planning any confession. He is pulling out a massive sword to slice her in half. Closing his eyes, he focuses, knowing a teleport attack is incredibly risky. He decides to combine the emblem with Teleria's wings for his final trump card. By syncing his sword's swing with the teleport speed, he can deliver a devastating, instant blow. With a flash, he activates his wings and triggers the emblem, rushing toward his target in a relentless, blinding charge. He lands a barrage of brutal strikes, tearing her apart. He thinks it is over, but her tail suddenly wraps around him, dragging him to the floor in a painful crash. Both fighters are left sprawled on the ground. Ho struggles to stand, his body completely broken, as he looks over at his severely beaten opponent. He claims victory, relieved to be alive even if he can barely move. He plans to head through the portal to recover. But let's pause, something feels terribly wrong. No victory notification popped up, and his wounds are not healing. Realizing she is still alive, he spins around just as she whispers that he is cruel, shocking him to his core. Seeing him immobilized, she smiles and declares she will make him her husband instead of killing him. Ho instantly snaps back that he would rather die. With only one arm left, she desperately crawls toward him. Ho is in rough shape too, but he can still move. His emblem is on cooldown, but his wings can still protect him. He mutters that if he still had the pistol he gave to Park, this would be over. As she inches closer, he searches his inventory and pulls out a heat stone. He hopes this gamble works. Since lizard men are cold-blooded reptiles, he grips the burning heat stone tight, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. She keeps dragging herself forward, mumbling about marriage. But just as he prepares to throw the stone, she reaches striking distance. Suddenly, she gasps and collapses, her energy completely spent. With her dying breath, she remembers how he called her strong, never treating her as disgusting, cowardly, or some evil devil's servant. He saw her true self. To her, he was the missing half she always wanted. She says even if he is a small, weak human, he is strong, and she will marry him one day. She is finally gone, but she managed to terrify him to the very end. Calling her a fool, he wonders if her own tribe rejected her. With her weird abilities and no normal lizardman instincts, she was really just a sad, lonely soul left in the world. Feeling a pang of guilt, he accepts they were destined to fight. He softly apologizes and closes her eyes, right as system messages congratulate him for clearing the 5th floor. His brutal wounds instantly heal up. The gods hold a vote to offer him a unique skill, passing with 74 in favor and only 3 against. Their last gift was amazing, but communicating with monsters has him questioning everything. Still, rejecting this offer might completely ruin his standing with the gods, which he cannot afford. He has to accept it. Instantly, he unlocks the Summon the Fallen skill, which is absolutely broken. It lets him use soul-marked items to temporarily revive the dead to fight for him. Even with its limits, this god-tier power is a straight-up miracle. He can barely believe a skill this overpowered actually exists. Suddenly, a bright light rises from her body, revealing her soul stone. But Ho realizes if he revives her, she will probably just force him into marriage again. Deciding he is not crazy enough to dig his own grave, he ignores the prompt. Looking at the portal, he sighs at how absolutely insane these gods really are. He steps through the portal, finally relaxing back in Kirikiri's world. She greets him, teasing that breaking a woman's heart was extremely cold. He tells her to shut it, asking if she really wanted to see him with a giant lizard. She stammers, admitting probably not, wrapping up chapter 39 right at the portal. A system message warns he needs a party for the 6th floor. Trust me, you and I are going to want to see how he manages that. True to his word, he hands over the sweet cake he promised her before the battle, ending his brutal 5th floor trial on a wholesome note. All right, you and I are jumping right back into the action, and things are already getting weird. Kirikiri laughs that Ho is the first person ever courted by a 5th floor guardian. After that, he tells her to drop it because he has a serious question. He has been analyzing this for a long time, and the 5th floor made him certain. But before he can ask, Kirikiri flatly tells him she cannot answer. He wonders if she just read his mind, but he keeps pushing anyway. Goblins and lizardmen clearly have their own societies. He does not know if these floors are separate planets or dimensions, but they are definitely distinct worlds. Or maybe they were stitched together from ruined worlds. If so, there could be other tutorials going on right now, completely separate from his own Earth. He even suggests the monsters invading his world are just like Kirikiri. She glares at him with a look so sharp he immediately backs down, telling her to just forget he said anything. Once he retreats, Kirikiri relaxes. But that shift only makes him more suspicious. She warns him that while he is just guessing, if he tries to read her reactions, she will start faking her behavior to mislead him. Ho says he understands, remembering this happened once before. Back then, Kirikiri refused to speak, but her expression changed completely, giving away the truth. Since she is always helping him with crucial info, he decides taking advantage of her kindness is just wrong. With a heavy sigh, he sincerely apologizes to her. Soon, the portal to the next floor opens up. Kirikiri suggests he think about the marriage offer again, leaving him shocked. She teasingly tells him you never know. Edeltaru could actually be a great ally if he can somehow convince her. Anyone who felt sad when she died probably got a spark of hope from that. Honestly, she might just make a comeback later on. After all, he did unlock a new skill on the last floor, but he quickly declares he has zero interest in talking to her. Besides, calming her down would be impossible. Ho heads toward the portal, muttering that trying to recruit Edeltaru is a waste of time. As he walks, he wishes he could upgrade his shield, but he is painfully low on points. Kirikiri suggests he buy more potions since he refuses to revive Edeltaru for backup. He claims his current stock is plenty, but she smiles and tells him she highly doubts that. That gets him thinking. Ultimately, he dumps all his remaining points into extra healing potions. He has never regretted following Kirikiri's shopping advice. She bids him farewell, telling him to stay safe and return quickly. But right after, she mutters that she doubts he will, leaving him wondering if the 6th floor is truly a nightmare. Now pay attention, because here is where the system throws an absolute curveball. The moment he teleports, a message demands he recruit 4 more party members to enter the 6th floor. This is complete madness. It is a massive shock. Where is he supposed to find teammates anyway? Trying to form a functional party with normal challengers is basically out of the question. The skill gap is simply too massive. Plus, he is the only one playing on hell difficulty. Why should he suffer for this? He briefly thinks of Edeltaru, wondering if revival is an option. Yeah, absolutely not. Right then, a notification alerts him that the god of adventure is highly disappointed in him. Ho instantly tells the deity to shut up, picturing some creepy old guy in robes. After venting his frustration, he stops to plan his next move. He stares at the party requirement window and starts wondering if a solo clear is even possible. If he goes alone, he has to do the heavy lifting of 5 hell difficulty challengers. That is a total disaster. He asks himself if he can really pull off this solo run. Even if others were on his level, they would not compare. In fact, he is confident he would still outclass them. His self-belief is unmatched. He remembers the god of slowness, mentioning that his traits granted him a highly unique authority skill. He never would have obtained it otherwise. So, if his theory holds, the god of adventure must have granted him a special authority as well. He feels tense, knowing how rare these blessings are. But he admits that once he mastered his current abilities, they felt incredibly powerful. He has grown stronger in every conceivable way. Still, Carrying a 5-man hell mode run solo is a massive question mark. There is only one way to find out. He locks in his choice, and a second later, lands on the 6th floor in style. Ho receives a welcome notification for the 6th floor. Scanning the safe area, he spots 2 portals. One likely leads straight back to the waiting room. The other offers the test of taunts. Ho remembers reading about this specific layout on the player forums. Rumor has it the entire floor is structured as one continuous trial. This cozy spot is the bonfire room, a safe zone where parties gather to strategize. The fire crackling in the center of the room is entirely magical. It produces no smoke, never spreads, and never goes out. Done examining the room, he approaches the main portal. Deciding to go solo, he steps through, and the scene shifts to a dark dungeon. Ho materializes inside the dark corridor. It looks exactly like the hallway from the very first floor, except the return portal has been replaced by a massive stone door. You and I both know nothing ever goes smoothly in hell difficulty. Suddenly, a notification pops up explaining the grim backstory of this nightmare-inducing level. Here is the lore. 50 years ago, the corrupted priests of the Bahar Church were hunted down by the Pantheon. Their cult specialized in raising the dead and harvesting evil spirits. 16 priests, led by a man named Thaddeus, escaped into the frozen peaks of the White Mountains. That region was once considered a holy land where an actual god used to reside. Now, these dark priests are using divine relics to plague the continent with endless nightmares. The system tasks our brave warrior with holding the line until holy knights arrive to assist. That is the setup. The clear conditions are simple. He must prevent the undead swarm from breaking through the stone door while hunting down all 16 priests. Ho realizes that if their numbers are high and their stats are solid, this will turn into a grueling war of attrition. Flying will be tough in here, but the narrow hallway is ideal for choke point defense. Our main character braces for impact. 4 long hours pass in dead silence. Suddenly, the entire corridor begins to vibrate. Looking down the hall, Ho spots a massive, surging tide of skeleton warriors. The rumbling from their march is deafening. Individually, they look weak. If he fights smart and utilizes the tight space, he should be able to hold them off. The real nightmare is their sheer volume. They just keep coming. There must be tens of thousands, and those necromancer priests are likely raising fresh corpses as he fights. Ho decides to slaughter them faster than the priests can resurrect them. Now he understands why Kirakiri said he would be gone a long time. This is on a completely different level. He deploys his wings to completely seal off the corridor, ensuring no monsters can slip past to the stone door. The battle officially starts, and Ho begins by instantly crushing a skeleton's skull. He realizes their weak point is the head. Crushing the skull is the only way to put them down permanently. Charging forward, he blocks an incoming strike with his heavy shield. Some of these monsters are heavily armed, likely serving as commanders. But out of nowhere, things go south. In a split second, he is completely swarmed by the undead. Ho realized too late that his reaction was sluggish, and now the entire horde is glaring at him with lifeless eyes. There is no room to retreat. He gets shoved right back against the door. No matter how many he crushes, they just keep coming, completely blocking his path to the bosses. And that is where we leave our main character, failing his first try after 2 days of straight hell. Alright, you and I are diving straight into chapter 42, where things get a bit confusing. Let me break it down for you real quick. From here on, we get glimpses of the present where Ho is stuck on the 60th floor. The guy we have been following is actually his past self, showing his crazy journey up. We will find out why he is trapped on the 60th floor soon, but right now, we see a massive egg in a special chamber, with our hero waiting for it to hatch. Everything is set, and the dragon egg is ready to hatch very soon. He has already planned out his post-hatch routine, bathing the baby in rare elixir first, then granting it powerful resistance buffs. He has even planned its diet, and if the little beast does not imprint on him naturally, no problem. He learned special taming magic just to bypass that. So even if the newborn hates his face, it will still love him like a dad. Suddenly, a call pops up. It is Kim, calling one last time to say goodbye before returning to the real world. Ho teases that he expected Kim to stay trapped forever, but Kim laughs it off, saying he is ready to go home and live a quiet, peaceful life. Our main character highly doubts Kim will stop hunting monsters entirely. After all, Kim was one of Korea's first pioneers, and the country is absolutely packed with elite, high-ranking awakened hunters. Just staying home could make him a fortune on fame alone. Ho mentions that if there were a big conference today, they could meet face-to-face. Kim agrees, but admits he is totally sick of those meetings. That surprises Ho, who thought the last conference was actually pretty fun despite the rocky start. Plus, He heard rumors that another massive gathering might be happening very soon. Kim is caught off guard, admitting he has been out of the militia loop lately. He asks if Park knows anything, which instantly brings her to our hero's mind, prompting a quiet maybe. Now pay attention here because Kim explains these massive conferences only happen during major tutorial crises. If trouble is brewing, Park is already moving fast to shut it down before it gets worse. Ho jokes that the next big meeting will probably happen when she finally beats the tutorial and returns to reality. They both share a laugh. Eventually, Kim asks if he is excited to meet the new rookie stuck on the 6th floor of Hell difficulty. Ho shrugs, saying it is best not to expect much since others have reached it too. Still, Kim thinks the kid has serious potential and wonders if he can clear it. Ho notes that being an archer makes it brutal, but with the right gear, it is possible. Top-tier gear can carry a hunter past the 10th floor, or even the 30th with some insane luck, just like those Americans. Kim then asks how strong our protagonist has actually become. Ho asks why, and Kim explains that people on the outside will definitely ask about him. He suggests comparing Ho to a G-rank beast, which brings us to a quick breakdown of real-world monster ranks. Ranks went from F to A, then S, and finally G. A G-rank monster is a literal national-level threat, with only 4 existing globally. And once they claim a territory, they never, ever leave. Ho reveals that a G-rank titan named Aklara sees New York, dragging America into a brutal war. Soon, global superpowers and the world's strongest awakened fighters had to join the slaughter. They managed to kill the beast, but the cost was absolutely devastating. Half of the world's strongest awakened died, a grim fact he learned from new arrivals. Original tutorial veterans had never witnessed such a nightmare. But judging by those standards, Ho realizes he is ridiculously strong. The two keep reminiscing for hours, talking about how they met, their darkest struggles, and their best memories. Ho admits they only met briefly during those conferences, but those fleeting moments meant everything to him after being isolated in hell difficulty for so long. He respects Kim deeply, and once Kim escapes, they will lose all contact. No calls, no messages. To Ho, it feels like a permanent loss. Finally, Kim bids farewell, promising they will meet again on the outside. Let's pause for a second. With the call over, we see our main character sitting in silence, surrounded by letters. And one of them, it holds a massive secret. Ho probably has not seen her in years. Suddenly, we flash back to the past, finding our hero in the waiting room right after failing his first 6th-floor attempt. He calls it his very first taste of true defeat, but he forces himself up, knowing he must push forward despite the terrible odds. He had stared death in the face since floor 1, but this heavy sense of failure was entirely new to him. It triggers painful memories of his pro-gamer days, when he retired immediately after a devastating loss. He fell right at his peak, and after arriving here, he had finally climbed back to the top. The fear of history repeating itself terrifies him. Standing tall, he vows never to let that happen again. We then return to the moment he was thrown back into the waiting room, completely crushed after failing the 6th floor. The loss makes him feel utterly worthless. Meanwhile, we learn that new arrivals have brought grim updates from the real world. One chilling report claims the entire region of Chungcheong has been burned to ash. Ho notes that these updates left the challengers completely paralyzed with shock. Even so, other regions were somehow holding the line, and Korea was managing to survive relatively well. Military blockades were established north and south of the ruins to contain the monsters. It did not ease the panic, but if Korea was still breathing, other nations were likely facing absolute apocalypse. To make matters worse, chaos was brewing inside the tutorial. As Session 4 kicked off, Park Jung-sik launched a brutal campaign against resurrected elements of the corrupt representatives guild. Our hero is surprised they dared to move after the brutal beating they received at the Great Conference. However, in the tutorial community, all of this drama was already yesterday's news. Because Ho had been isolated on his floor for so long, these events had actually played out days ago. He reveals that the militia's war against those rogue guild members ended in a flash. 8 people were dead. Shockingly, Park Jung-sik personally executed 2 of them with a .38 revolver Ho paid for. Naturally, the community began furiously debating if she was still fit to lead the civil militia. Honestly, our protagonist cannot decide if she is turning into a merciless monster or remains a pure champion of justice. But as long as she does not cross the ultimate line, he will not interfere. If things spiral out of control, another grand assembly will be called, and Ho vows to handle it exactly like he did before. Meanwhile, Kim had been incredibly busy helping rookies adapt to the harsh reality. He published an extensive survival guide for the community and even established a brilliant trading network using the existing auction mechanics. If an item was posted for 7 or 77 points, it belonged to a designated player, and others knew to stay away. Ho admits this unwritten rule was simple but worked flawlessly. Before this, the auction house was just a place for high rankers to dump garbage on newbies. Trades were rare, and since points were so hard to come by, prices remained dirt cheap. Ho muses on how different they are. While Park focused on exposing crimes and punishing evil, Kim dedicated himself to building a safe haven where players could actually coexist. He wanted a real, functioning society within this nightmare, whatever it took. Kim once argued that instead of obsessing over the elite reaching the 100th floor, they should protect the masses left behind. Our hero knew Kim was right. Countless players were falling behind, and Kim's mission was to carve out a path for the weak. Meanwhile, Ho was not just wasting away on the 6th floor. With the start of the 4th session, fresh victims arrived on hell difficulty. One poor fool picked it by accident while drunk, while another selected it thinking the choices were completely meaningless. Talk about terrible luck. And that's where we leave it for now, with Ho remembering his first teammates who actually chose hell on purpose. Let me show you how insane this is. Back then, he was the sole survivor. To help the newcomers, he decided to teach them everything, giving them a guide on what to avoid. Next, he sent them to challenge the very first trap. Soon after, a rookie called him in pure panic, saying it was impossible. The arrows flew too fast to even track, and he only survived by accidentally tripping. Ultimately, only one person returned, and that survivor completely lost his mind. But our main character already expected this. No amount of teaching could save people who simply were not ready. It left him wondering what it would actually take to keep players alive here. Another guy tried pulling challengers up from the lower floors, but in hell difficulty. That was a total death sentence. So, he clears his mind to focus on his own path. He can't stop thinking about how he is actually supposed to conquer this brutal 6th floor. During dinner, he pulls out some magic soul stones. Goblin Practice, Goblin Goros, the Lizard Man, and Dada. With his fallen summoning skill, he realizes he could bring back 3 companions to aid him. But here is the catch, we don't even know if they'll actually obey him. But if he can persuade them, he gets a full squad to share the burden of battle. They could swap places to conserve stamina, keeping a fresh backup ready for emergencies. And if a big commander-level boss appeared, his extra fighter could jump in and crush it. Or better yet, all 4 could unleash a massive combined assault to wipe out everything in sight. In these tight tunnels, that strategy is perfect. This skill is honestly a cheat code. It feels like the gods literally handed it to him for this raid. But one tiny detail in the description ruins everything. The summon is temporary, meaning his newly revived allies will just poof out of existence very quickly. Knowing this, he knows more team-oriented challenges are waiting down the road. So, even if he survives this floor today, he'll just end up hitting another massive wall later. So, let's look at his crazy plan. Forget teamwork. He's just going to become strong enough to do the work of 5 people himself. This guy is mental. He refuses to back down. No matter how many brutal defeats he takes, he'll keep throwing himself back into the fire. Thanks to his pain absorption skill, the more damage he tanks, the faster he grows. Eventually, his raw power will surpass this entire dungeon. He stands up, ready to grind for months if that's what it takes. And if he dies, he'll just respawn and run it back. Survive. That's his one and only goal. Taking a deep breath, he steps back onto the battlefield to begin an endless grind for power. He won't stop until he can solo this whole place. Fired up, he vows to shatter whatever obstacle stands in his path. The endless cycle of combat restarts, and he's going to show this system the true meaning of human grit. His ultimate objective is set. The 4th round wraps up with the 6th floor undefeated. But trust me, you and I will see him conquer this. Drop a like and see you next.